Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. It's Sunday night. It's time for V8SCOPS, the 10th round of the 2023 season here at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. This is a relatively new track to the iRacing service, but should be very familiar to those of you who have been following international racing for a very long time. This place has been around since the late 1990s, and it's certainly brought quite a bit of drama already this weekend throughout the 2 nights of V8SCOPS support racing. What will it bring tonight with Super Split 2 and finally Split 1 action this Sunday evening? Find out with us here live on YouTube, Facebook, and Kick. I'm Reese Gardner. Dan Yeaman is alongside me in the comms box and handling production behind the scenes with Jay Kennedy otherwise occupied this weekend. We send our best wishes to Jay and his family, and we will get started on this night's racing, Dan. Oschersleben is quickly becoming one of my favorite circuits to watch racing at because it's tight, it's twisty, it's technical. It's certainly got a lovely winding geometric layout that seems a bit simple on paper, but when you actually get out there, really tests your skills.
It really has been a challenging track, that's for sure, to watch the drivers get around the past 2 nights, and to make it 3rd time's the charm for us here for the weekend. Almost there to wrap things up, but a little bit further to go, so we'll have a look at it here from the top-down view. Using the iRacing Grand Prix configuration, which you mentioned last night, I believe it was, specifically that it's not the real-world Grand Prix configuration. The real-world Grand Prix course still uses the hard 90-degree left-hander at turn 1. Instead, however, after the fact that it's a bit of an infamous corner in the international touring car history, at the very least when it comes to this circuit, we ended up getting the motorcycle Grand Prix layout as the option, which is classified as Grand Prix here on the iRacing service.
Yes, and I mean, this circuit has some lovely flow to it as a result. It's a very fast entry into turn 1. You're having to brake and turn at the same time to get it slowed down for the very long turn 2 at Hotel Hasseröder. Turn 3 is one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit, or at least the one that tempts drivers the most. We've seen quite a few big dives at that corner, and it's all about car control through the middle sector, all the way from turns 4 to 10. You don't have a moment to rest.
No, not even close. Constantly turning left or right, depending on which side of the 4 through 10 complex you're going through. Have to be careful also through the McDonald's chicane there, not to get too greedy with the curbs because they are flat and therefore are tempting to try and really throw it in through there, but can pick up off tracks and slowdowns there, which more than hurt the run down to turn 11 and 12 there. Open medium speed chicane complex there, which has got a bit of a fall away on the exit of 12 if you try and use the curb out there, so you've got to be careful not to get sucked off the road, which we did see a couple of times already this weekend. And then 13 and 14 to sort of medium speed right-handers to wrap it up and bring you back around to the front straightaway here at Oschersleben.
Yeah, and that's not everything that the drivers will have to think about tonight. There's also the pit lane. Have a look at the entry before turn 14. You got to peel off the racetrack, but then it's a very narrow pit entry road, and there's barriers on both sides with grass lining the edges. So if you make a mistake into there, could be very easy to end your night. And the pit exit as well could be a point of contention. You'll notice there's a very sharp right-hand turn to bring you back onto the circuit in the middle of turn 2. That's obviously not how the pit lane originally was when the circuit first opened, largely put in on safety grounds, that specific exit, but it makes things very difficult for the drivers. They have to slow right down and be sure not to cut the inside of that right-hander getting back onto the track.
Yeah, indeed. Seen off tracks if you push too far past it. But I think also, critically, the blend cone is a long way round into turn 2 on the outside of the circuit as well. And it's pretty much a car's width. There isn't a lot of wriggle room there when you're coming out of the pit lane back onto the circuit. So that also, I think, could be one to watch out for, Reese, if drivers get a little too greedy trying to get the car turned to the right there through Hotel. Because, of course, well, not of course I should say, but we do have plenty of pit stops coming our way this evening across both Split 2 and Split 1 action.
Yeah, that we do. If we can take a look at tonight's format, we'll see that Split 2 is a 25-lap sprint race with a compulsory pit stop for a minimum of 2 tyres between laps 2 and 23. 25 laps total, just under 100 Ks of racing here, with a grid that has been set by the times from pre-qualifying. If you're new to V8SCOPS action, we have 3 days of pre-qualifying leading up to the event, and there's a total of 80 slots that are up for grabs in the night's racing. If you're in the bottom 40 of those times set, you go into Split 2, and that's how the grid is set. The drivers that are in 41st, 42nd, etc., they'll be starting from the front of the grid in tonight's race. So from what I can see, no fuel tank restriction for this Split 2 event. So it's all going to be about when you come in to take those tires. And the tires on these cars, Dan, notorious for being very good right out of the box, but only after a few laps, they start degrading a bit. And it's not so much making the cars more difficult to drive, it just makes the car slower.
Yeah, and also things like being really mindful of your throttle application and your braking application to not pick up too much wheel spin, lock the tires too much early in the stint. Again, a real test of your ability to manage the car, manage the tires in particular, so that they don't feel too bad towards the latter parts of the stint. I think will be one to watch. Even if it is only a 25 lap race, that is a good chunk, but almost I'd say 80%, 85% of what a full tank of fuel can do around Oschersleben here in these cars. If our numbers from last night's 2014 V8 races are roughly anything to go by in terms of fuel mileage, they were getting 32 laps to a full tank of fuel around here. So keep that in mind, I would suggest as well.
Yeah, definitely have to keep that in mind for the Split 1 race later tonight, which is going to be a 250-kilometer single race with 2 mandatory pit stops. We'll go into more detail about that when the time comes. For now, we should draw our attention to the practice session for Split 2. Evolution Racing Team's Chad Lewis is on top of the timesheets, but not by much. Dylan O'Shea of 95 Sim Sports is within a tenth of him, and the time's looking very close at the top of the sheets. Thing is, though, that might not necessarily be where they start. Remember, the grid is set by pre-qualifying times. Fishy Motorsports' David Coleman finding out the hard way that you can get involved in someone else's toss-up out of the second turn, and Simon Nozomo almost doing the same thing.
Yeah, that was Ken Latta, the 269 Sim Racing car. Ken's currently qualified P5 he's currently P5 in practice. Let me rephrase that. So it's important to get that distinction right here, that these times that we see right now, they just give us an idea of what drivers' individual pace is like at the stage. It's nothing more, nothing less, really. I'm over there for Ken. Just David comes around the corner and must have been completely blindsided by what happened to Ken, or what happened literally right in front of him with no time to respond. Because that was a hefty hit. So, of course, to eject, tow back to the pits, the car resets, and they go to get another lap or so in. That there, just as we switch back to Coleman, a little example of just how you can go a little too hot and just touch the grass there on pit exit race.
Yeah, and that'll cost you valuable time if you do that in the race. There's also potential for safety cars as well. This being an Oceanic Sim Racing run event, there is a manual safety car. If you end up stopping by the side of the track and the car's too heavily damaged, you can't get it back to the pits by yourself. You have to request a tow from race control. You can't just escape back to the garage without asking for permission. And then if race control deems that the car would not be safe being out there in the real world, they will call a safety car, and that will be driven by one of the race directors here at Oceanic Sim Racing. So whether or not that safety car happens early, middle, late in the race, I think if it happens early on, then we're going to be seeing the entire field come in to get their mandatory tyre stop out of the way, because it would be the obvious conclusion that you'd lose less time when the field is going slow behind the safety car.
Without a doubt. I mean, there is the fact that the safety car comes on lap 1, depending on exactly where drivers will, when it's called, that will dictate sort of what the pace on the in-lap is like for drivers, if we do have that early call. But of course, yeah, there is the consideration that even with if safety car is called, the in-lap is still pretty much at full pace, because of the fact that we can't control the speeds on a manual safety car. I can also confirm for you who's going to be on pole, Reese, and it will be Dylan O'Shea in the 119. It was actually the 41st fastest time in pre-qualifying. So that was the That's the name to watch out for. I think a little surprised to Dylan here in split 2. I mean, yes, he's right on the cusp of having made it into the top split, but all things considered, in my opinion, Reese, probably someone who should have been in split 1 based on his pace that we've seen so far this season. And again, of course, there are many reasons why perhaps he might not have been able to quite be where he would like to be.
Yeah, well, we'll see whether or not Dylan O'Shea can earn the golden ticket to race in Split 1 later on tonight. That is the right that the winner of Split 2 has. If they choose to, they can race in Split 1 later on. So, let's check out the grid then. Dylan O'Shea starting on pole. He is alongside Kenneth Latter for Synergy Sim Racing. Chris Miller in car 666 is going to start alongside Nick Rodder. Fishy Motorsports getting into the top 3 as well as Alpha Venturi. Nice to see. We've got Oliver Patterson starting alongside Ben Christensen on the 3rd row. And then 7th place, Simon Mazzomo for 9.5 Sim Sports, starting alongside V8 support category leader Aaron Gilbert in Team Jinx Shifters 203. Warren Davis and Stephen Kennedy will round out the top 10.
They will indeed. Looking back at P11, it's going to be Jamie McKnight. He's sharing row number 6 here with Steve Miller there for Excalibur Esports Commodore. 13th place in the hands of David Coleman, who we saw there strong in practice. At least we'll see if that can be converted to spots up the grid here during the race. Richard Mayer alongside him there in 14th place. Another driver who we saw out on track last night as well in the older cars. Hopefully he'll have a better night tonight. If you know, you know. Justin Pennefather at a P15. We'll be sharing row 8 with Aidan Ford there from the Platinum Racing number 98 Mustang. Chad Lewis, fastest in practice, but looks like got some work to do here in the race. Dylan Gray alongside him, 17th, 18th respectively for those two. And top 20 going to be rounded out here by Dave Douglas and Lindsay Hobbs, another driver in Lindsay Reese, who will be certainly hoping for, well, he almost got there, just the final hurdle last night didn't quite go his way.
Yeah, last few spots then. Riley Curtis and Joe Mahoney on the 11th row. We've got Andrew Ritchie and Steve Vella starting in 23rd and 24th. Then we've got Brendan Murdoch, Dean Hunt and Jai Schultz rounding out our 27-car field. Henry King also taking to the start as well in the final grid slot. So, now we turn our attention to the standing start here. It's a nice big field of cars coming to the start here at Oschersleben. So far this weekend in the supports categories, we haven't seen a grid this big, so it's been difficult to really judge how chaotic lap 1, turn 1 could be.
Yeah, that is very true indeed. This will be the test of a field this size. We'll be seeing in the teens for the fields in V8SCOPS supports this weekend. You can see here with 28 cars, they're almost all the way back at the final point. If we go back to Henry King real quick, you can see here, that means with a full field of 40 races, we're going to see drivers on or around past the apex of the final turn. So that will be something to keep your eye out for here, as we are just waiting for the final seconds on the countdown timer to elapse. And indeed, they will wrap up there. Revs will rise here as we get ready to get the night of racing underway here with Super Split 2. We get the green flag signal, and it looks like the front of the field is okay on the way. Slow car towards the back, but O'Shea might just hang on to the lead for turn 1.
Yeah, it's looking like he's covered Kenneth Latter nicely on the way into the first turn. Latter off the accelerator early there as O'Shea goes barreling into the first turn. The rest of the field follows behind. Ben Christensen stuck on the outside of turn 2. He is up against Simon Mazzomo in the battle for 5th place. It looks like Mazzomo will have to try and go around the outside of turn 3 for that. A lot of 2x2 running through the field. We saw a couple of slow starters, of course, but it seems like they've managed to sort themselves out. Stephen Kennedy losing a lot of positions, as is Richard Mayer. We've got cars off the circuit. Riley Curtis in the wall, and it looks like Joe Mahoney recovering onto the circuit as well. That was on the exit of turn 3. That's a real shame to see. Lap 1 claiming its first couple of victims.
It's unfortunate. So Mayer here is just in behind Dave Douglas, so 19th place for the 948 front juiced racing entry, and still in one piece and looking healthy now. So Curtis are only victim of lap 1, as you see here. Might have got away with only minor damage there on the front left corner from this angle. At least we'll see if he just tracks around turn 10 here. Yeah, looks like that was indeed only minor damage for him so far. So I go, but Ron Davis, slow car off it. Aaron Gilbert firing towards the pit entry there in the 203.
Oh dear. Oh man. Okay, so the start and the end of turn 1 have claimed a few victims here. Aaron Gilbert, he's heavy in the wall. Yeah, can he get it unstuck? No. I think we might see our first safety car from this. He'll have to request a tow from race control. Will the safety car be called is the question, because he's right at pit entry and off the circuit. So for now, the battles will continue on. There's Simon Mazzomo going up the inside of Oliver Patterson at turn 3 and getting the move done very nicely as he tries his best to claim 4th place back from Ben Christensen.
Here in a second. Yeah, really is seeming steps on it thick. The field is already heading up towards the end of the back straight, onto the back straight, I should say, sorry. As Shay's pulled a nice little margin on this opening lap, but it might unfortunately be all for naught. We'll throw it up here at 2.
Safety car call.
And there it is. Coming down towards turn 11 and 12. Field is neutralized, so we should now expect with the compulsory stop requirements, everyone to basically peel on in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dylan O'Shea does not hesitate. He goes straight for the pit entry here, as does pretty much everyone behind him. Let's see if there's anyone who is going to throw a bit of a curveball and decide to stay out. For the time being, it actually looks like we do have one driver staying on the circuit. Yeah.
And Steve Vallot. So make that 2 drivers. I'm going to choose to fly the contrary flag. Look at that there. Horde of cars in the lane whilst these 2 stay out on the circuit.
Yeah, well, everyone save for 3. The 2 people who did not get onto the lane, and Aaron Gilbert, who's still stuck in the Armco barrier on pit entry. Pit stops are completed, and looks like reasonable routine stops for just about everyone. Big outliers I'm seeing are Stephen Kennedy and Stead Miller, whose pit stops took 14.3 and 15.9 seconds respectively. You would expect that every driver in the field would take all 4 tyres. You only have to change 2, but in these cars it takes the same amount of time to change all 4 tyres as it does for just 2. So you might as well bolt completely fresh rubber on the car. Pit stop should take around 10 seconds, but yeah, as I mentioned, Kennedy and Miller, a few seconds longer than that. I'm not quite sure why. Joe Mahoney getting some damage repaired, I think. Either that or he's gotten a penalty for an unsafe pit entry. Mahoney was the one involved with Riley Curtis, that first incident that we saw on lap 1.
Yeah, I think it's just damage repair, at least by the time I got around to looking at already there. No black flag next to his name in the server here. So Curtis has done the tyre change and gotten back out again, so it might be the case that the car is okay. He'll certainly be hoping for, that's for sure. So let's see now if we can actually pick up this lap 1 incident that did involve Riley Curtis, and actually see how exactly that unfolded, and then we'll try and also pick up exactly how much of a contact it was there for Aaron Gilbert, unfortunately sent him towards the wall here.
Yeah, so coming out of turn 3, Riley Curtis was on the outside of Joe Mahoney. That is where the incident ended up happening, and you'll see that it wasn't any sort of bad racing. It was just more that Curtis got some oversteer on the curb here, and that sent him right into Mahoney. The cars got stuck together briefly, and Curtis had to get on the anchors and ended up just getting into the tyre barriers a tiny bit. Other than that, escaped damage. And Aaron Gilbert, meanwhile, well, there was a spinner in front of him, just catching the grass. And Gilbert, unfortunately, only tried to take avoiding action, but there wasn't much he could do after that.
Davis, 77 Banter Alliance Racing entry. All kinds of loose through turn 13. Put paid to one man for them. But that is the extent of the incidents in the race. And with that, basically everyone now back out the circuit. Looks like the 203 of Gilbert is now back in the pit lane. So there we go. He is in. And a confirmation from the race control team. We are going to go back racing here at the end of lap number 4.
That we are. We noticed also, as we were checking out Joe Mahoney in the pits, Brendan Murdoch also with a very long stop, and I'm not too sure what the reasoning is for that. I don't know if you saw any black flags next to Brendan Murdoch, Dan, but yeah, I didn't see anything untoward happening out on track that would put Brendan Murdoch as far back as he was.
Yeah, I didn't see anything either myself, so must have missed something there and all of that. Might have been residual damage or contact off of the drivers there and all of that, but we'll have to wait for that another time. Safety car already on its way back to the pit lane, and the field now about to be in the hands of Jai Schultz to restart this race. In lap 4, we'll have to wait a moment for the call from race control before he has full control on exactly when we're going back green. Get to at least turn 13 by the looks of things before the call is made. In fact, it's almost going to be at the final corner. There we go, it's in. All right, so he's now got control. Reasonably lengthy straight. He's going to wait past the apex a little bit. That checks the field for a bit and still checking the field. Everyone here may think he's going to go early, but he goes late. And look at them fan out in the background, but a nice restart there as a result for Schultz. He'll get a car length or 2 on Vella behind.
He will indeed, but they're at a disadvantage here as already Dylan O'Shea firing it up the inside of Vella, who almost goes deep into turns 1 and 2. Has to give a little bit of room on the inside there to Kenneth Latta. A little bit of contact, but Latta will make his way through, presumably. Vella's going to try and fight him. This is giving a big advantage to Dylan O'Shea, who was in the effective race lead, having already taken his mandatory pit stop. Was still owed a stop by Vella and Schultz, who maintains the first position here coming into turn 7 out of the triple.
Oh, spin.
Looks like Vella, yeah, oh goodness, oh that's bad, that's very bad. That's one of the fishy cars involved. Steve Vella, Kenneth Latta losing places. 2 cars in the gravel trap. One of them looks like Simon Mazzomo.
It is Warren Davis in the 077 there as well.
Oh, Chad Lewis spins as well out of turn 7.
It's Justin Pennefather up ahead of him as well on the 46.
What has happened?
Absolute carnage. Meanwhile, O'Shea gets back to the race lead. See, everyone tripping up and over themselves there on the restart lap. See here, this is in and around 10th place. Nick Rodder there in the 31 number Venturi car, now damaged both sides and having to mindful, it seems, as people are really trying to hustle their way past here on this restart.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that that segment of chaos was started with Kenneth Latta and Steve Vella. Latta on the outside coming into the triple actually turned in on Vella, and unfortunately that sent Vella spinning right in front of the rest of the field. So
Stephen Kennedy around there on pit exit.
Oh dear.
Inside the lane line.
Right then, well, he's off the racing line, so all we can do is wait for the rest of the field to go by and resume position right at the back of the field. That's a real shame to see for Stephen Kennedy, but he had the space to get back going again. So through all of this, Ben Christensen has found himself in 3rd, effective 2nd place, and all he had to do really was stay out of trouble, and he has netted himself a fantastic potential finishing position here. Question is, how does he get past Jai Schultz? Because this isn't much of an overtaking opportunity down here. Regardless, Christensen's going to fire it up the inside and get the move done, but with that, not without a little bit of muscle.
That just gets in there as deep as he is allowed to. And prevent any kind of overlap from Schultz, who takes to cutting through the grass there. A mowing expedition. As Latta has peeled off back into the pit lane.
Yeah, so that's for a penalty.
That's already issued to him, yes.
Yep, so race control deemed that Latta was at fault for that big incident that caused a lot of crashes in the middle of the field. So Latta will drive through the pits and resume position pretty much at the back. Still probably won't be dead last, but it's going to be difficult for him to come back from that. So keep an eye on the front of this field, see how far Jai Schultz falls before he has to come in to get his mandatory pit stop out of the way. Also seeing quite a bit of damage here for Oliver Patterson, who remains in 8th place. Patterson was one of the cars involved in that huge amount of contact, and we're also seeing that the likes of Mazomo and Pennefather are also carrying significant damage to their cars.
We have had a fair few of these cars converted into coupes or hatchbacks, as you will, in terms of exactly what it is. But I think, yeah, whilst we've got a moment, we might try and quickly jump to the replay here. Start trying to dissect exactly how it happened. As you said, though, start to TST Bella, Ken Ladder. That angle there doesn't really help tell the story. And then both cars are out of control, and then just, yeah, check up there. Mazomo and Patterson, Rodder, Warren Davis firing around the outside, and everyone else is having to, thankfully they're far enough back until they can slam on the brakes and stop before anything else happens there for them. Just get back, oh, and then you go, Lewis and Pennefather just independently all spinning there.
Yeah, it looked to me like Latta here, he committed to the turn-in for the triple, but of course, Vella was still there. I think Latta might have been expecting Vella to concede the position, but regardless, that's all she wrote, and everyone else having to either take avoiding action or take one for the team and get massive damage at the start of this Split 2 race. Checking further back here, we do see that Riley Curtis is embroiled in the midst of a fight. Joe Mahoney actually right ahead of him. And these two made contact on lap 1. That was the first incident we saw. They are now back together on the racetrack, but I don't think there'll be any hard feelings between them. It was simply a slide from Riley Curtis that started all of that. And they're still running, which is a significant fact here. It's only a 25-lap race, which isn't that long, but to finish first, you must first finish.
That is probably the more important message of the day, as it were. As, yeah, this is a healthy-looking train for 16th on backers. No. Unfortunately, Riley Curtis will have to take to the grass, and then that means he's all kinds of out of shape here as they go by him there. And off the back of the group, he will drop. And eventually there, it's 25th or 4th there, so him now, Pennefather slipping through 23rd. That spot away. Thankfully, they're still pointing in the right direction at the end of it all, despite the fact that they're having a hard time getting everything back to a racetrack where he'd like it to be.
Yeah, David Coleman, another one of the cars involved in the smash on lap 5. And yeah, he's still doggedly pursuing Chris Miller for what's 3rd now, with Jai Schultz behind these guys and actually becoming a bit of a cork in the bottle. Jamie McKnight, Aidan Ford and Oliver Patterson are trying to get past Jai Schultz for P5 right now. We still have yet to see that pit stop from Schultz or Vella, who remain out there in varying states of damage.
4 cars here.
There he goes.
There we go. Schultz will immediately dispatch. This is just when the pit stop will come. That is when. I still think this is not an ideal move. Now you get track position for a bit, but now he's going to be so far behind everyone. The tire advantage he will have seems probably, well, just not very useful.
Yeah.
At least in my simpleton mind up here in the comms box, since I don't see the benefit you'll get is with nose to bumper messaging going on there between Ford and Jamie Knight, but it's just on the right side of how you doing.
Yes, indeed. We have another penalty that's just come in from race control as well. Richard Mayer in car 948 has been given a black flag for contact on lap 6, and I think we missed that. Mayer's currently running in 11th spot. There was a separate incident that race control was notified of. I'm going to go back and check that. And see.
That will be Kennedy at turn 1.
Yeah, Stephen Kennedy, yeah.
Didn't have a scat, so I think.
So Richard Mayer turned him at the first corner. This is how it happened. Mayer just trying to go up the inside here. Unfortunately, a little bit too deep, and Kennedy, I think, still had the right to choose his line at that point. And so, massive disadvantage for the 555.
And there we go, straight away from there, as we head back to our pitches, he will come in and surf this drive-through penalty. Interesting note here, Develop, still trying to hang on in this race. He is yet to come and take a pit stop. So approaching the halfway mark of this Split 2 action. He's back here at P16, so this could be something he has to now be mindful of. Race. Lindsay Hobbs, trouble at turn 1.
Hobbs had some trouble in the supports categories last night.
It's turn 2 actually take further.
But yeah, his troubles are continuing, and unfortunately he did that all on his own too. Was running in 13th at the time, and it just looked like a lazy spin for the car. Got massively unsettled between turns 1 and 2, and Hobbs just couldn't recover it.
Those, unfortunately, over the course of the weekend so far. Just jump up a little bit quick. Steering here. We'll find him well there. I'm just thinking, yeah, on the downshift there, not enough blip maybe. Rear axle hops up and locks on him there. He gets stuck. I think the car stalled out for a moment as well for good measure. I didn't solve the injury loss. He then has to find reverse and also get the thing refired.
So Lindsay Hobbs now finds himself way down the order in 25th place, just ahead of Richard Mayer, who's only just served his drive-through penalty, and Hobbs is coming into the pits. Evidently, there's some more issues in that car that Hobbs is finding the short end of.
Yeah, interesting. No penalties, no mechanical black flags to his name. So this is definitely unscheduled, and I get the feeling this will be a retirement in short order. Joe Schultz up a place, and he won't be the last car. He will still be the last car running, but we're getting up to 26th at least. He has had a moment out the track solo as well. For him, but we'll leave that be for now. Just zoom back up the field. This is really it in terms of fights in the top 5 at the moment. Just behind them, then definitely is still exciting. We've got Knight, Ford, Patterson, Dylan Gray joining the fight there as well. So a couple of things to keep our eyes on here, Maurice. In fact, we're definitely going to have a look at what's happening there. This is definitely been a little close, particularly there between McKnight and Ford.
Yeah, Aidan Ford is pushing Jamie McKnight hard, isn't he? And you can also see that Oliver Patterson and the heavily damaged 026 is trying his best to keep up with them. He's also dragging Dylan Gray along with him. We haven't seen much of Dylan Gray this year in V8SCOPS, but you can't miss him. He's that bright pink Mustang in the back of the shot. Let's see then what Jamie McKnight can do to fend off Aidan Ford here. Seems to me like Ford is just a quicker driver at the moment. McKnight is driving consistently. He's not making any huge mistakes, but in terms of outright pace, he's just not able to hold off Aidan Ford, who's been a hard charger in this field, up 10 places. Most positions gained belongs to Andrew Ritchie, who's 14 spots up in P9. And have a look at that, McKnight. He's already going defensive here. Is this actually a slowdown? I'm not sure. He's getting on the brakes early. Then Ford goes around the outside of turn 11, becomes the inside for turn 12, and McKnight continues trying to defend. Just enough room to squeeze through on the outside, and Aidan Ford has to yield and stay behind for a couple corners longer.
That was a little interesting there, that's for sure, but just parks the bus enough to make that work. Ford, again, drive initially in some places there, and of course a bit of toe down these straights. They're just long enough to get it. McKnight though just a little bit left of the natural line there, covers off the inside for turn 1 as they then head down towards turn 2. I'm seeing here right back and forth between 20s will have to that's all going well, because this is still the interest point. It's a little early in and doesn't get the apex right there for McKnight. Back under a whole lot of pressure. Listen, it's not quite close enough to keep the pressure on full all the time as well. Certainly, if things trip up between these two, though, next at any point at this stage.
So exit of turn 7 and the run through the chicane towards McDonald's is the big point of contention in this battle. If McKnight cuts that corner too much, he will get a slowdown. Doesn't look like he's gotten it this time. Just seems like he's struggling for exit grip in the rear. The car is looking more unstable than he'd like. Meanwhile, you look at Aiden Ford's car attitude. That thing is just going exactly where he's pointing it.
Pretty comfortable, pretty confident, and just what he'll be looking for. Indeed, as they around turn 14 once again. Really good through the initial part of the run off the final turn. Not so great in the second phase of acceleration, it seems. All things considered, this time not used to attack, but he's up on the brakes again as well. And he's, there you go, confident enough to actually try and really open up the entry, get a later, tighter apex at turn 2. A little bit closer again to McKnight, and forces the 027 down the middle of the road into turn 3.
Yeah, and you see once again McKnight has to have a couple of goes at the steering to actually get the car through the corner, otherwise he'd run very wide. Ford having to back off a little on the exit too. The onboard from Patterson is looking a little bit more scuffed for sure as he makes up more ground into turn 7, but again, slight difference of line. A little bit more ground made up on the by the two cars in front, just through sticking to the inside through the 7th corner here. There's so many turns around this track where they're long, they're never ending. Sometimes you can double apex them, but it seems, at least at this phase, you're better off sticking to the inside and having the shorter line through the turn.
A little bit of grip left in the car. That does seem to be the play. We'll fan out a little bit on this particular lap, it seems. Indeed, forward to Gray's car. An outside angle. Definitely screams. Inside might be a better play to aim that.
Save people's eyes.
That is true. Wouldn't want to be accused of causing retina burn. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Something that we saw a lot of drivers come a cropper at last night, as into the first corner comes Simon Mazzomo and Henry King. Mazzomo, of course, still carrying damage from the big incident earlier on, started by Kenneth Latta and Steve Vella. Mazzomo with more drive around the outside of turn 2 will get the inside for 3, and he might just make up the position from here. Anytime you see yellow is the point I'm making around this circuit. Just stay away from it, because those anti-cut curbs, those speed bumps on the inside of turns 1 and 2, they will send you flying, and there's very little you can do to recover from it, as Dylan Gray now has a bit of a go at Andrew Ritchie. He's fallen off the back of Oliver Patterson. I think that's actually a defense here from Dylan Gray, trying to maintain his position, but Ritchie moves on by, and here comes Nick Rodder to try and take advantage too.
Yeah, just whilst we're looking back at the group behind these guys, all of a sudden I saw Ritchie and Gray's names back and forth on the timing screen, and then their big dive around the outside of turn 11 to try and keep a nose in it at turn 12. Was successful for Andrew Ritchie to hang on to that place. And now at least Mazzomo's also unfortunately lost a couple of spots. Got passed by Dean Hunt, although she took a spot off Dean initially, then lost it straight back, and then had to fend off Henry King in all that, as well as somebody dropped a spot or two. This was Riley Curtis passing Brendan Murdoch back in 22nd. There, so plenty of good fighting there. I feel this might have calmed down a tiny bit. Come back to this one here. From Dean Hunt trying to chase down Joe Mahoney, but Zomo going with at this stage of the race, and Dean, one of our other drivers on Zoom this evening. So might be time to try and get on board forward for a moment. See how he's going here in this second half of the race.
Yeah, he's looking good at the moment, is Dean Hunt. One of the ever fewer cars in the field that don't have damage of some kind. He's kept that 147 nice and clean, and doesn't look like he's looking behind at Mazomo all that much. He knows that he has a bit of a car advantage there, though Mazomo is pushing as hard as he ever does to try and gain a spot. Driver he's chasing up ahead there, Joe Mahoney, is, oh, here we go, Mazomo going up the inside. All right, so Mazomo had an excellent run through 11 and 12 there. Up the inside at turn 13, Hunt has to yield the position. So that's the trade for position between those two. Mahoney, I'm really surprised that he's managed to hold on to the position he has. Don't forget, Mahoney was involved in the first incident of the race between he and Riley Curtis, and he went all the way to the back. Thanks to the safety car and the huge incident right after it, he managed to avoid all of that and has found himself in 13th spot after starting 22nd. So, profit?
Yep, I'd say that's a profit right there, especially, as you said, with the circumstances. Trouble for Nick Rodder, meanwhile, back on lap 17, cost him some time and a spot to Stead Miller, as well as look at this one here and see.
Oh, yeah.
So he's on the back of Dylan Gray, coming up into turn 13. We've seen this place, a grass on the way in, and therefore losing the rear. So I haven't seen that one too often this weekend. There's plenty of trouble next at 12. That one just down by
Same thing that happened to Warren Davis at the end of lap 1. That's what put Aaron Gilbert into the wall and brought out that safety car. So now he just needs to try and maintain some kind of rhythm here. Speaking of rhythm, it's been a very steady one between these two. The fight for third place, Chris Miller and David Coleman. This has been a fun fight between these two Fishy Motorsports teammates, and they've been having a good time out there, keeping their distance. Coleman pushing as hard as he possibly can. This battle is not over either. The one for fifth. Ford and Patterson still can't find a way past Jamie McKnight.
No, they cannot. 027 resolute in defence. Making it work for now at least, although still got to make it another 6.5 laps before there will be a checkered flag awaiting this field. Despite what I thought was a little twitch off turn 7 there, McKnight looks like he's in under control there pretty comfortably down the back straight as they work through 11 and 12. Cornering, I think, still, I'd say advantage Ford, but I don't know if that's just Jamie making sure he gets good exits race or if Ford's overdriving through turns. Either way, the 027, okay, this might be the one that just undoes the line I thought I was going with, which is he doesn't look too threatening in the straight line, because here it comes.
Yeah, well, look at Ford, how much he pushes in the braking zone. You saw also that McKnight was gaining back a little straight line speed right at the end of the straight. Now, I know that Synergy has been working on their setups very hard over the last few months, and they've been trying to run setups with as little rear wing as possible. That might be what we're seeing in action here as Patterson sees the move up the inside of Ford, cannot take advantage though. Outside exit for Ford is with him. I think it is a difference in setup. There is potential that that Aiden Ford is running a setup with more rear wing, which should provide him with more grip in the corners, but makes him lose out at the end of the straights. And that little exchange has just given McKnight the bit of breathing room he was probably begging for.
Yeah, I think that would be a fairly reasonable description of what's presumably happening there in that one. Check back in with the fight for fifth if it closes back up. There's McKnight now up to about 8/10 of a second margin. I've just given himself a bit of a breather. We have this here for 15th. Dean Hunt, the leader of this trio. It's Henry King and Warren Davis behind. With Mazomo having gotten through, so they've gotten a little bit clear of the 147. These two here, nose to tail. We also have just behind that, Ken Latta has been right for him after the drive-through penalty. 19th. Father just barely hanging on. Let's get Steve Kennedy behind as well.
Yeah, some battles to be decided in the final few laps of this race. On board here with Pennefather as he tries to keep Stephen Kennedy behind him. Kennedy on the recovery, down 10 spots, and were it not for the earlier contact with Richard Mayer, we might be seeing Kennedy fighting for one of those positions in the top 10. Speaking of Richard Mayer, looks like he's just gone for a spin himself at turn 1 and has fallen back down behind Steve Vella, who still hasn't taken his mandatory pit stop.
Interesting there to see that's still the case. So yeah, that happened.
There's more damage on Vella's car as well from what I last saw.
Yeah, true. It is definitely not looking too healthy and happy there. Double F5. We'll pick that one up eventually when we get to the right car. Yeah, all full corners now looking certainly worse for wear. So let's go have a look here because Richard Mayer called it in. Whatever happened to him. So up behind Riley Curtis heading into turn 1. We'll stay outside, and it's going to be a pinch. Yeah, pinch.
Oh yeah. They were fully alongside, so I think Mayer had a right to be there. Of course.
Oh no, that's live.
Oh no. Uh-oh. Okay, Steve Vella off the circuit again. Certainly not the first crash he's been involved in tonight. I'm wondering whether or not he's going to call that one into race control, potentially call that one into the pits. Richard Mayer is slow ahead. Looks like he's going to try and redress the position and avoid the ire of race control. And there we go, all sorted out, though I don't know if that will be quite enough, because that looked like a pretty egregious hit.
It was, yeah, very, very deep, to say the least. We might maybe try and go back and see how far back he came. It was literally as I was transitioning back from the replay of Mayer, unfortunately being tagged. That's what, yeah. So we'll see here. So, yeah, outside of car's width, and he just gets in at the right rear corner. Definitely been on the post to close enough and already back over the gearbox. Vella has to come in on this lap to get that compulsory stop complete. So this fight will end regardless of what happens here. Well, fight here is now shifting back a little bit. Knight seems to be giving a little bit of breather for Aiden Ford. Oliver Pattinson still with Ford though. There's Andrew Ritchie joining the club essentially here in the final 3 laps to make it still a 3-way fight.
Oh dear. Oh, that's a big dive. Once again, seems like Patterson is now feeling more confident into turn 3, and that's worked out for him beautifully. He's going to stay ahead just a little bit inside line for the triple, and he is going to assume 6th position. Andrew Ritchie now smells blood. He'll try and get himself potentially into the top 6 from this. Not much chance that they're going to catch up to McKnight ahead there. The orange car off in the distance. He's just too far ahead for them to really make an impression in these last couple of laps unless there's a mistake from the 027. And it seems for the time being that sorted itself out. Aiden Ford's gotten back into a rhythm. Patterson has made up a gap. Now it's all up to 40 here to try his best to retake that place. He doesn't have much time to do it. Dylan O'Shea has already crossed the line and is about a third of the way round the penultimate lap, and we barely given any airtime to O'Shea at all. He's been that far ahead, which is a compliment. He's driven a pretty much perfect race in the 119.
Yes, and indeed, to be clear, that things go well enough for you well, lots of racing we're going to try and cover here up and down the field and see what comes of it as Patterson too deep into turn 2 there, sorry. And up towards turn 3. Ford later on the brakes. Can he make the outside line there work for Reese? I don't think so. Patterson inside will get the drive
Richie
off. I don't know from that angle if that was actually contact there or whether unfortunately Ford on the outside with a little bit of camber to his name, but not all of the camber that's available in there. It just went around.
No, it was definitely contact. Looked like Ford was trying to move back to the inside line on exit to get the over-under done. And unfortunately, Andrew Ritchie already committing to tracking towards the outside. Got into him. Kenneth Ladder trying to make up some places here in the final laps, side by side with Warren Davis. And Davis losing touch with Henry King and Dean Hunt up ahead. Ladder is now right in the midst of that fight for last couple of positions, for the last position rather, in the top 15. And that battle ahead is looking mighty fine as Henry King had a little look at Dean Hunt coming into turn 12. It didn't work out for him, but still a lot of potential for a move to be made on the final lap. Speaking of, Dylan O'Shea has already taken the white flag and he's making his way through traffic. And considering the car that's ahead of Dylan O'Shea right now, Steve Vella, still hasn't taken his mandatory pit stop. So that will be a penalty for the 005.
Yeah, interesting there to see Vella not going to the lane with everyone else. Yeah, he needed to come and take that for lap 23. He's actually going to stay ahead of the race leader. So it will be O'Shea who gets the win. He actually will get lapped here as we come across the line. So O'Shea to take the win in Super Split 2 here, commandingly by 16.5 seconds. That will see him, well, open to go through to Split 1 in due course here this evening. It's like Coleman will continue shadowing on to the very end. Stay as it was. Still half a second off Dylan Gray here, Reese, but it's close. They might stay here with this one to the line, see what can be made of it. We're going to have to get a perfect run. No.
Yeah, a little oversteer through the mid-corner there, just went in too deep. And in terms of battles, it looks like Kenneth Ladder has made his way past Henry King there. And that's one more position for Ladder. He is into 15th spot now. That's a shame for the driver who started on the front row. Definitely a race that Ladder will not look back on fondly. Warren Davis just fends off Justin Pennefather meanwhile for 17th spot. And battles getting sorted out through the rest of the field as well. Kennedy finishes in 21st place, just ahead of Chad Lewis. And it looks to me like that is the last real battle on the circuit. Jai Schultz is still making it, actually no, Richard Mayer making his way to the line to conclude the race. 24 cars finishing on the lead lap here. O'Shea will get the golden ticket into Split 1. We might be seeing more of the 119 tonight. 17 seconds the gap to Ben Christensen. A dominant run by O'Shea with Chris Miller completing the podium. It's Coleman and McKnight who round out the top 5. Patterson managed to get past the car of Aidan Ford, who was unfortunately then involved in an incident, followed by Ritchie, Gray, Miller, and Rodder to round out the top 10. And Rodder, I don't think will be too happy with how things have gone for him. He did start this race from 4th.
Yeah, indeed. So looking at things here, movement up the order though for Dave Douglas. That's a pretty nice night for him, up to 11th place there. Joe Mahoney in behind, comes home in P12, also double-digit move forward for the 36. So solid for him as well. Unfortunately, Simon Zomo tangled in that complete calamity in the triple. Unfortunately, puts him back down the order a couple of spots to 13th. Dean Hunt up 12 to 14th place. Able to just stay ahead in the end of Ken Ladder there. Definitely a case of could have been perhaps. Henry King behind him will have to settle for 16th, though it is a plus 12 from the last starting position of our Split 2 drivers, though, for the 429. Warren Davis, unfortunately, a little bit of trouble for him, goes back to 17th there. Pennefather drops 3 to 18th. Aidan Ford there, late spin and a contact there, as you said, Reese. We'll have to settle for 19th on the road. Steve Kennedy behind him, a couple of troubles for the 555 machine as well. We'll round out our top 20 there.
Yeah, Chad Lewis spun just after the huge incident right after the safety car. Managed to get into 21st in the end ahead of Brendan Murdoch and Riley Curtis. Richard Mayer finishes last on the lead lap in 24th spot with a penalty and a further bit of contact for which he needed to redress with Steve Vella, who finishes a lap down, but I don't know if he'll really be classified considering he had a mandatory pit stop to take and he did not take it. Jai Schultz, the other car to stay out under the safety car, ends up finishing a lap down as well. Our two retirements, Lindsay Hobbs and Aaron Gilbert. Big shame for those two. They could have been on for some excellent results, but that's going to conclude Split 2 action for tonight. It is not the end of this night of racing here at Oschersleben for round 10 of V8 SCOPS for 2023. We've got Split 1 action coming up very soon.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV. Round 10 of V8SCOPS for 2023 here at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. Well, Split 2 action certainly brought some drama. Plenty of big incidents out there on the racetrack. Will Split 1 give us more of the same, with a few real-life Australian touring car drivers making an appearance this round? Once again, if you're just joining us, I'm Reese Gardner with Dan Yeaman alongside me in the comms box and handling production behind the scenes. Dan, I can't wait to see how this Split 1 race ends up going. We have got an absolute marathon of a race coming up. Probably not as much of a marathon as the Buda 161 yesterday in supports, but still, 68 laps of this track is nothing to sneeze at.
Oh, no, not even close. Someone actually was sort of asking about the race format, asking of me the race format a couple of days ago. And actually, we were able to calculate it was exactly 4 times the length of another series race that he'd done. Actually, well, my own series, the AOG V8 Super Series, because we did 17 lap races here just back on Monday night, which is now nearly a whole week ago now. But yeah, tonight's race for Split 1, exactly 4 times those short sprint race distances here. So that will be something to watch out for. More race strategy is going to be required from the drivers. We have 2 compulsory stops that they have to take. So a bit of a, interesting thing. You'll see how things play out. But yeah, if we get a restart due to any kind of incident, it seems to be that could be the potential troublemaker in the mid-pack at least. Because yeah, that was all going fairly well for 3/4 of a lap. Then we get a safety car and then we get the restart lap and someone dropped a bit of a live grenade in the middle of the pack, it seems, once we headed up through the triple.
Yeah, the triple, of course, being a corner where it's very difficult to change your line. In fact, 3 corners where it's difficult to change your line. You can effectively treat them as 1 corner on the run up to turn 7. We also saw that drivers were throwing some massive dives at the likes of turn 11, Shell Curve, and then Sachsen-Anhalt, the final corner at 14. Outbraking, making those desperate moves seems to be the main way to make overtakes here at Oschersleben, because drivers have been reporting since Friday night that it's difficult to pass around here.
Yeah, it is going to be, it has looked a little tough, and that's what indeed people are saying. And it just makes you wonder here, the play, some drivers and how they're going to go about things. Because yeah, you're going to need to be committed on your moves in the more obvious spots. It's also going to require drivers who are trying to defend their spots to be pretty proactive about their defense as well, I think, to sort of get a feel for things, and also just run their lines, run their rhythm. Hopefully we won't see too many moves in tricky spots or things like, say, seen a couple of times where a bad run off turn 7, the opportunity is there at turn 8 and 9 through the McDonald's chicane if the other driver yields. So drivers knowing when to also perhaps give up a spot momentarily, that's going to be important to hopefully see that as well here in Split 1 tonight.
All right, 2 times they're going to have to negotiate that pit lane, and make sure that they can get to the end of this 68 lap race that's coming up. Of course, we have a qualifying session coming up very shortly as well. Before we get into all of that, I think we should keep an eye on the championship standings coming into this round. Of course, it's been a very tightly competitive season of V8SCOPS, and there is the proof in the pudding. Ryan Leonage and Andrew Gilliam equal on points coming into this round. Now, of course, they are both present in the server tonight, so we are going to have a new championship leader out of this, depending on how they finish.
Yep, there's only one way around that one. Someone has to come out ahead tonight. It has been impressive to see that these two guys grabbed early wins in the season, and whilst there have been other race winners certainly making their names known this year for V8SCOPS, it's very much been a case of back and forth over the course of the season between Rayhan and Andrew here for the SCOPS Championship. So it is going to be one to watch. Also, things like seeing who else is here from the top 10. I think notably Brenton Hobson said that he unfortunately wasn't going to be able to make it, and no sign of number 88, a Hobbo, on the list. Likewise, Mike Taylor, is here in the service. So again, also maybe say if something unfortunately massively went wrong for Rayhan and Andrew, chance for Taliantic to close that point deficit going into the Endurance Cup races. So it's, again, a lot of possibility here tonight, as always seems to be the case, really, that the movement up and down is wide open, with 450 points on the line for the driver who can get the race win here tonight.
Yeah, for sure. There could be potential for Robbie Gibbs as well, car number 2. He's in 9th spot down there, doesn't have much of a gap ahead to the drivers above him in the standings, and he's currently set a time good enough for 4th in the practice session. So look out for Robbie Gibbs tonight. This could potentially be a big points paying evening for that Evolution Racing team number 2. Either way, it's going to be a lot to think about for these championship standings coming through this night's racing. And now we can think about what the drivers are going to be going through here tonight. Of course, qualifying, which is going to be going live in just under 3.5 minutes, will be split into 2 groups. The bottom 20 plus the split 2 winner, and then the top 20 will get their own 15-minute session with a 5-minute break in between. And it's going to be a bit of a difference to some past rounds of SCOPS here, Dan, because we've been running multi-race formats quite a bit this season. I think drivers have gotten used to there being a hard cut at the end of the qualifying session. That won't be the case here tonight. There's only going to be one race. Drivers will be able to finish their laps once the time hits 0 in that second group.
Yeah, it is sort of a bit interesting like that, in the sense that we get used to seeing those hard cuts, whereas turn things around a little bit here tonight, mix things up as it were. One of the things there to keep our eyes on. So curious to see how drivers adapt and make sure to time those qualifying runs to get the most out of them this evening. Just over 2 minutes left until qualifying gets underway. It feels like it's probably appropriate we start looking here at how things are going out on the circuit, Reese. And basically, we came in a little late to the session, and he's just been eclipsed. It's going to be Shane Van Gisbergen and Robert Kostecki to the top of the time charts. At this point in qualifying, SVG just putting that time on the board, 1:24.96 as we go to the lead ahead of everyone else there.
Yeah, we also see Richie Stanaway in the server as well. He's currently in 19th spot in the standings, running a 1:25.1 in practice, and out there in his teal Mustang. It's good to see that the real-life Australian touring car drivers still get on the sim from time to time and have a run in V8SCOPS, and I mean, SVG and Brody Kostecki seem to definitely have the big advantage in terms of pace here, don't they? It's pretty insane that they managed to jump straight up to the top two. They topped pre-qualifying as well. So the series regulars are going to have to pull out all the stops to overcome Kostecki and Van Gisbergen. 1 minute left in practice, and at the moment, Bo Albert of the series regulars is on top, 124.3 for the privateer Mustang. He drove a Commodore last night in the Birder 161, driving with Lindsay Hobbs. Dylan O'Shea also putting in a good showing, having just come from winning the Split 2 event, now fourth.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if perhaps they're O'Shea just again not converting in pre-qualifying to anything remotely close to his pace has been, because we've seen him at the front of Split 1 fields a couple of times this season. So just to me feels as though being in Split 2 wasn't representative where he was meant to be. Robbie Gibbs next the drivers in practice, at least here in P5 as we're about to hit the end of the session. Time for drivers to get ready to head out. The groups are set based on pre-qualifying times, so we will have the drivers who pre-qualified 21st through 40th, which will also therefore include Dylan O'Shea from Split 2, heading out in this first half of the qualifying session.
Yeah, and considering O'Shea's form, I think we can expect him to be challenging at least for the top of this session as they make their way out of the pit lane to start this first qualifying session. These are the conditions that drivers are dealing with at the moment. 38-degree track, pretty warm out there on the tarmac, but only 20-degree air temperature. We are in mid-afternoon in sim time, so I reckon there's going to be potential for the track cooling down a bit towards the end of the night's racing. We'll see how that affects the lap times here in qualifying, as well as the sheer amount of cars out on track. Of course, when there are plenty of cars forcing their hot rubber into the racetrack, it does tend to heat up the racing line and slick it up a little bit. So you never know. We might be seeing a bit more of a challenge for the drivers in Q2, being able to set fast times even with the 5 minutes of track silence between the sessions. Either way, Dylan O'Shea is leading the charge here, making his way down the back stretch towards turn 11 and 12.
Yep, he will be the first cab off the rank here in qualifying Group 1. As a result, it's appropriate we jump on board with him here.
Yes.
See how our first flying lap in these conditions will go. Nice and gentle at the final turn for O'Shea will ensure that it's a nice, neat and tidy run as we make the run. We'll make our way down towards turn 1 of the race.
Difficult to pick the braking marker on the right-hand side just before the access road. Dylan O'Shea carries the brakes into turns 1 and 2. Run a tiny bit wide, straighten up the exit, bring it back in for the exit for turn 2. Use all of the curb for the short run to turn 3 at Hasseröder. Make sure you turn in early, try and stick to the inside. You can run a little wide in the mid-corner to straighten up the exit once more. That is the definition of the first sector here at Oschersleben. Then the triple. Try and extend the entry as much as possible. A little wide in the first left-hand kink, but make sure that you hit the curbs at the apex for the other two. Straight line the run into turn 7. You can stick all the way to the inside, all the way through, or you can go a little wide and make a double apex. Here's the chicane. Try and be aggressive over the curbs there in McDonald's. It's all about the exit onto the back stretch. O'Shea seems perfectly in control of that 9.5 SimSports Mustang. Here's turn 11. Brake at the 100 marker into third gear. Monster the curbs through turn 11 and turn 12. Be careful of the exit there. The track does fall away a little bit after the curb. Then turn 13. Just make sure you nail it. Use a little bit of the pit entry to widen your entry into turn 14, straight line the exit, all of the curb used once more. That was a very clean lap of Oschersleben. 1 minute 24.4 is Dylan O'Shea's first salvo.
see here in a second, times will come in, throw them up on the tower, and once we get a few more, and has been eclipsed. O'Shea will not be the driver with the fastest opening lap in the session here. It's going to go to Bo Albert, picking in by all of 0.02 of a second there, but 24.389 on the board. So that's I think that's a good starting point. As you look at the margins back then from himself and O'Shea, Cameron Jones nearly half a second back, but third place for him at the moment. Tyler Blackburn is just over half a second off the fastest time so far. It is definitely a little tighter here. We've got margins no bigger all the way from P3 to currently was P18. The margins are no bigger than 0.08 of a second here. Actually, no, I take that back as a lie. We'll go to Justin Mollison's 16th. Gaps are no bigger than 0.08 between the drivers. And it's 0.2 back into the score there. Zach, the last one back in order in terms of it being tight. The car in front of him. Often, unfortunately, off the pace. His first attempt at a flyer here in qualifying 1.
Yeah, Jordan Siberis having some issues as well. He's in this session, but he has yet to set a time. He abandoned the end of his first lap and has only just come out for an outlap for another run. He's off sync with everybody else, and that means that he might potentially have a coming together with someone when he is on his hot lap. Of course, the no escape rule is active if you're new to V8SCOPS competition. Oceanic Sim Racing, like many leagues now, actually enforces going back to the pits under your own power after you finish a hot lap. You can't just pull over to the side of the road and escape back. You have to make sure that you enter the pit lane, pull up in your box, and then you can escape if you need to. Siberis, though, gearing up for the start of his first hot lap as the rest of the runners are actually making their way out onto the track for their second runs. So what is this going to mean for Siberis? He's going to have to pick his way through a few cars.
Let's see here. Passed by 1, no issues there. The 042, Ben Faulkner is going to be out of the way for him, all things considered. Then he's got a bit of breathing room. He heads up towards turn 3. There's a handful of cars up, down, negotiating the triple sequence of the circuit. As we'll see if you'll be able to get to them at a convenient part, because there's not a lot of space to make a move work up here. We're hoping to pick them up to run the back straight away here. 30.8 for the opening sector. That's about 0.3 down, I believe, on Dylan O'Shea's flyer. Should be the same as well. So we'll just way through. Is this one looking definitely a little calmer than what O'Shea's onboard blip, but you know, sitting on the roof cam and not actually seeing the steering inputs are going for Siberis, but at this rate, this will be at least one on the board for him here, hopefully, in an okay spot.
Yeah, and it looks like traffic won't be too much of an issue for him coming into the final corner. They are slowing up there to get the best run possible onto the start-finish straight, but Siberis will not catch them. So good to see that Jordan's been able to get a clean lap in. Let's see where he puts himself across the line. 125.45. That's good enough for 18th spot.
There you go. It's not quick, but it's a banker, and you can always go from there at least in the scheme of the qualifying session now. So we'll see drivers around. O'Shea is currently up here. So 30.5. That's better in sector 1, I think, by another half a tenth or so. So this could be again a time that will sneak back a provisional pole from Albert here. So we'll track this to the end of the lap for the 119. Using all of the curb down the exit of turn 12, Reese. But again, looking in plenty of control there for O'Shea. Even getting up on the curb there at turn 14. And then you're going to straight line it here up the left side of the circuit. He will indeed move to a 24.162 on the presumption that's gone official, and it has. There's the marker forward there here in qualifying 1.
Yeah, Bo Albert, meanwhile, had to abandon his lap. He's just pulling into the pits now. He got some big oversteer coming out of turn 10. Cameron Jones comes across the line, and he improves as well by 3/10. Good stuff there into third. Justin Wallace with a major improvement. He gets up to 12th spot. Tyson Broad also improves into 9th. Some big improvements there. I saw drivers jumping 7 or 8 positions there. So evidently they were just getting some bankers in on their first runs, and this is where we're really starting to see their pace. What about Blackburn? Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to improve. Taliancic improves, but so does Teo Sorono. They are now 9th and 10th in the session. Broad back to 11th.
Keeping the margins awfully close here now. We're talking 1/100th to 3/100ths of a second. For driving. Zachary Vlasbaum leaps up into P13. That was a good 7-8 spots moved forward for the number 57. Another driver going to a 125.1 as well. Again, even though, still the margins are pretty large at the top of the field. Again, we've got a very dense second half of our field, presuming these times a lot of quick drivers in the back half of the order. It's looking promising here for competitive racing. So we're going to have to see drivers really work strong on the maximum strategy and keeping their nose clean at this rate.
One driver who didn't keep his nose clean was Jay Brazier. He just finished a second hot lap, and he ended up going straight on at turn 2. He's having some issues getting that thing back to the pits. He might have to request a tow from race control here, and that will be the end of his session if they allow him to pull back in. Either way, it doesn't look like Brazier's going anywhere quickly. So that's where he ended up. But coming... Yeah, he was stopped there for a good 30 seconds. That was my exclamation at the very same time you pointed out the improvement for Vlasblom. I just noticed him going off the circuit in a big way. So he's there with, I believe that's Dylan Pereira coming across the line, and then getting on the brakes for turn 1. I'm not too sure exactly what's going on, but something wasn't right with the car, and he just went straight across and into the wall. That's some heavy contact with the tyre bundles, and the front suspension of that car will not be in a very good state. He is still stopped there in the gravel trap for turn 3.
Yeah, so it's going to take a moment to clear that one up, it seems. Should presumably be a case of he'll be allowed to tow, but then no further part in the session. And back to the beginning of qualifying 1. If you're unfamiliar with how the groups are going to be split 15 minutes apiece, it's to complete the lap you're on once they call checkered flag. So for qualifying group 1, we've got 3.5 minutes left to go here. So Dylan O'Shea winding up. This is probably going to be his last chance to move into a 24.0 or maybe a 23.9 here and just improve his potential starting position in this race. So here to see what he can do. Sectors to build him up. Confirmation that Brazier will be gone from down the gravel at turn 3 by the time the show arrives.
Yeah. Unfortunate end to the session there for Jay Brazier. He will not get an opportunity to improve on 19th spot provisionally. That means that if Severus or Mulford improve, then he'll certainly jump in there. And my apologies for misidentifying. I think the Phoenix Racing Team car I saw with Brazier on the start-finish straight was in fact the 85 of Tim Mulford. Either way, Dylan O'Shea making his way through the chicane. Looks like he managed to nail the apex there. Didn't go too far beyond the red and white curves, which is what will trigger a slowdown or an off-track through that section of the circuit. And 30.6 first sector, 29.3 second sector. Laps looking solid. Big improvement for Sebastian Tixier in the 070 at the end of his run there. He's gotten up into 4th spot. So looks like the track is steadily improving, but O'Shea, I don't... Oh, okay. So a lap around here takes 1 minute and 24 seconds. Dylan O'Shea still has time to get around and do another lap from here, but he's going to have to do a fast out lap.
And I think he might have just blew it on pit entry there way too quick. So the thing is, they're coming to his pit lane yet. He's literally going to escape in front of the lane, and well, he can get round, and that's definitely fine. The problem is that he's going to have to do a pretty quickish outlap here, which will not give the tyre a chance to be in optimum conditions, as Justin Wallace has just moved himself to P6, goes to a 24.900. So we're getting some more cars there around that 6 to 8/10th bracket relative to O'Shea's time so far in the session. Keeps it there now from P5 all the way down P20. Margins are counted in hundredths if you're lucky, more likely to be thousandths. Talian's just gone to P9, which will end his run here in quali. See here, some of the smallest margins, for example, and for P15. Let's throw up the margin. So the car ahead.
Oh no! Wow, 0.02 of a second between McLean and Faulkner. Shows you how narrow the margins are in this series, as they have always been from the very moment they started. So we'll see how much of an improvement Dylan O'Shea can make and try and put a little more breathing room between himself and Bo Albert, who's out on track at the moment on his final hot lap. O'Shea will actually get there just in time with mere seconds to spare before the checkered flag flies in qualifying 1. Here's Albert then on the exit of turn 7 through the chicane, and he's nailed that nicely. 30.5 first sector, manages to keep the rear end stable out of turn 10 as well. I think he will commit to the end of this lap. He needs to gain 2/10. Have a look at that sector 2 time. That's looking good.
Now, unfortunately, I just don't have a way to bring up Delta to the leader. That would be probably the perfect one to be able to see exactly where he's at relative to O'Shea. Commits here into the final corner. Just sliding around a little bit there on the way in, the short shift as well. Looks like this will still be a chance.
Oh, it is an improvement, but not by much.
All right, O'Shea, what's he got for us here on this lap? Not a great opening sector. He'd have to cork something fierce back here at the end of the lap to turn things around.
Yeah, well, regardless, he's on. He's got provisional P1 in this session. I don't think he's going to worry too much about that. You can see that he's kicking the rear end out. He knows that no one else is on a lap that will potentially be able to beat him, so he can just cruise to the line and will take P1 in Q1. Of course, that may not necessarily translate to a P1 start for the race. We still have the top 20 in pre-qualifying yet to come out. So these are the results then. 2/10 between Dylan O'Shea and Bo Albert. Cameron Jones getting into 3rd. Nice job there, as well as from Sebastian Tixier, who only puts himself a 10th and change ahead of Skilbeck, Blackburn, and Wallace. Dan Hall only another 300ths behind, with Loxton and Kirby rounding out the top 10, separated by 3 thousandths.
It is some very, very tight margins indeed. Taste there at 0.84 off of O'Shea's time here to start the session off. He's got about 800ths back to teammate Teo Sobrano, and Tyson Broad making top split debut, Drop Bear Motorsport. Another 300ths back there from the 111, nearly 13th at this stage. And then Fastbomb just over a second off of O'Shea there in 14th. It's about half a 10th back, sorry, Broad. Then there's the now potentially 1 millisecond. I think it's still 2. On my timing it is, between Justin McLean and Ben Faulkner. Pretty close either way you look at it. Behind then, Jason Fewens currently P17. Luke Swan 300s back from there to P18. A couple hundreds more to Jay Brazier, and Jordan Saberis about a 10th off there in P20. Final car in qualifying. Unfortunately, all on his own, lonesome there on the final page there, Reese, will be Tim Mulford, who will have the final spot on the grid for the start of this race.
That he will. So, will anyone have further issues in qualifying 2 and end up starting behind Mulford? We'll have to wait and see. 1.5 minutes left until qualifying 2 gets underway, and the OSR safety car is out there. Sponsorship being carried, of course, from Pagnian Advanced Simulation, which has been providing a sim gear marketplace, sim gear retail to the Australian, New Zealand sim racing community for many years now. My Thrustmaster T500 RS that has been serving me well for about 8 years now, I actually got from Pagnian. So big thanks to that crew there for getting Australian sim racers kitted out, and also for your support of V8SCOPS for 2023. Henry King's going to bring the Porsche 718 Cayman into the pits, and now we wait another 40 seconds or thereabouts, and we're going to have the heavy hitters out onto the circuit. I'm very curious to see what kinds of times we're going to see out of SVG, Brody Kostecki, whether or not Dylan O'Shea and Bo Albert will be able to stay within a couple of tenths of them, because they have looked really good in pre-qualifying.
Yeah, they have, and that'll be something to watch out for, because, also curious to see here if I bring up the weather and server. It has not changed, really. A couple of micro bumps and dips there, all things considered. It's not really changed. So, the only thing really that you could say has changed since the start of qualifying is perhaps a little bit more rubber down on the road, and these conditions, hopefully that won't have affected the pace of the circuit all too much. We started at 50% usage to keep for reference, so we'll see what we can do for them here. So 15 minutes plus the time after the checkered flag is given by the sim here, Reese. We're looking at 5, maybe 6 attempts. Actually, no, shoot. Yeah, no. 5, maybe 6 attempts. I think will probably be. This is an out lap, fly lap, and in lap all have to be accounted for when it comes to the counting of the clock.
Yeah, and you take all of that into consideration. Say a lap takes 1 minute and 25 seconds. Add about 1 minute and 35 either side, and that's going to give you 4.5 to 5 minutes per attempt. So actually we should be getting around 3 proper hot laps at most from a lot of the drivers in this session. Let's wait and see then what Griffin Gardner can do leading the charge here out of the pits. He is followed by Ben Smith and Dylan Pereira, who is now out on session in the Phoenix Commodore. So then, Griffin Gardner, he certainly had a big upturn in form recently, a recent signing to 9.5 Sim Sport, and always been a pretty quick driver. Managed to get a few V8SCOPS wins under his belt already in the past couple of years. So let's go then with car 93 into the first couple of corners. Gathers up the apex very nicely, and the first part of turn 2 brings it down past the sausage curb, and a little bit of oversteer on the exit of turn 2 probably will not be to his liking, but this stage of qualifying is all about setting a banker. It's setting something that you can improve on in the second half of the session.
There's no need to be overly concerned about front pace right out of the get-go. If you lose a moment here, lose a moment there, you've certainly got time to make things up. You should indeed make sure a time on the board is definitely better than no time on the borders up through McDonald. You see, nice and steady there. Seeing any real effort to push the issue there as the 30.7 was opening seconds. We know it's about 2.5 tenths off what shaded at the end of a session there. Time pretty similar, though, I think, through second 2 maybe, although that might also be down. It's more like what I shaded on his in-lap. A bit of an expression session right at the end of things. The final corner for Gardner. Tap on the curb here though. All the drivers in that first group does not jump back jump up into third early. 24.4 for first lap time there for Gardner. It's good enough for P3 as times start coming into the teens.
There we go. SVG to the top. First driver into the 123 second backer.
Right. Just picked Gardner. William, not really there on pace just yet. 24.7 for his first lap. Pace. O'Reilly. Now, that's a quite a solid opening lap for the 222 machine. Haven't seen him towards the end of the qualifying session yet this year. Yes, it is first run, so there's a bit there to consider, but much to think of it there with that lap on the board. Top 10.
Yeah.
Now rounded out by Dylan Pereira as well there, moving it to a 24.76 at this stage.
So our top three from qualifying one are now in second, third and sixth. That tells you what the state of play is coming into the second qualifying session, and Ryan Leonage should certainly be happy with the running he's had, getting into fourth. Stanaway as well. He wasn't quite there in practice, but it seems now, once the pressure's on in qualifying, Richie is right there, and he will be challenging potentially for the top three. Let's see how much he can improve on his second run. Benjamin Smith not getting a time in, neither did Seth Brown. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more from quite a few drivers here coming through. Brody Kostecki is going out, so is Delaney, Gibbs, Flock, Morris, and of course Brown.
Flip this over here. Looks like the Flock going to set a time now as we've got the opening two sectors counted at this stage. This one will be about 4/10 off in sector 1, at least 3/10, maybe more in sector 2. There you go, mid-24. Actually not going to be a bad time at all there for Seb if that counts, and it will indeed in P7 on his opening run in the session. See here, Ben Smith, nope, taking one. Nice, Robbie Gibbs. He's just getting started for one, I think.
Yeah, looks like a clean run through the first couple of turns. Delaney, meanwhile, concluding what looks like an outlap here, unless he had a bit of an issue in the first few turns there, and that was indeed a hot lap, not sure. Kostecki, meanwhile, looks like he's backing off a little bit on his first hot lap here. Doesn't seem like that's a very competitive first sector time. He is following SVG around here. So I'm not too sure what the inter-team dealing is between these two. And wow, that was way across the runoff area at the chicane. That lap will certainly not count for Brody.
Indeed. Trying to pick where our drivers are here on the lap. Leonage setting up for one perhaps here, although behind with Gardner. Yeah, I guess the other drivers coming out for their flying lap attempt, so 8 minutes on the board. This is the front of the wall. With this game here, of course, I'm starting to figure out where the drivers are at on runs, and the next car across the line set time almost just to sort of sit at the start-finish line, just see who flashes past us. Let's say here Gardner is saying all that. 30.7 again, not a great opening sector versus what he'll need to punch up a couple more tenths towards O'Shea's time at least.
This is interesting. I would expect that, drivers like Griffin Gardner would be able to get a bit further up. But maybe it's something with the track conditions, maybe it's the setup. I honestly don't know. There's an improvement from Blake Delaney. He's just gone all the way up to 25th place, 125.066. Good job there from the Fishy Motorsports driver. Check back in with Griffin Gardner, though. He's about to come across the line here. and see if he can improve on a 124.47, and he will. It's a 10th game there for Griffin Gardner. He jumps up to 3rd spot. Still not quite enough to overcome O'Shea or Van Gisbergen.
He'll take that. Penalties, no improvement on the last one. Stanaway and out of order. Let's see here. This first, Gilliam goes up to P7. Which is up from P9. 30.6. So Stanaway's on a lap here. See if he can improve, although he has to find at least 700ths to make a margin. Seth Brown jumps up to P12 there.
Yeah, that was a big improvement for Seth. Took him a while to get there, but wow, what a lap that was. And he'll be happy with that for the time being. We'll be able to improve later on. Michael Whiting as well, P11 as things stand. Wasn't actually looks like was able to improve on that last lap. Ben Morris setting a 25.0, but we'll keep our eye here on Stanaway. See if he'll be able to get a bit further up. Ian Ford goes from 22nd to 13th, meanwhile, in car 115. Big improvement for Evolution Racing Team there. Stanaway across the line, 124.36, and he's actually set pretty much the exact same time as Rayan Leonage did. So Van Gisbergen and Stanaway bookending the top 5 from that one.
Indeed, to the millisecond. They're reporting identical in sim, so there is a 4th decimal place. There is a 4th decimal place available in the API, which means presumably that will be used on the back end to tie break that in favour of Leonage.
Yeah, because I called Stanaway in 5th because my gel real timing shows him in P5. The times are so close that JRT is reporting different positioning to what iRacing is.
I guess also a case of, yeah, it's that, or it's calculating off, the times come in and it updates, whereas perhaps in this case, I guess, well, since it was identical even to 4 decimal places, perhaps a situation there where you'd...
Kostecki to 2nd.
Yep, there's the big hop. All of a sudden the timing string goes on white.
All right, just as Andrew Gilliam makes his way out of the pit lane for what we're assuming is going to be his final qualifying run. So Kostecki not far behind Shane Van Gisbergen, and that's just under a 1/10 of a second worth of gap between SVG and Brody. So they look to be sitting pretty at the front of that field, but considering there's still potential for improvement from the likes of Gardner and Stanaway, they might not be as safe as they seem.
Yeah, see, it's still tight there. The fact that we've got, what, 4 cars there covered by less than 300ths from Gardner through to Stanaway. I mean, sort of we're getting sort of these groupings of times now. It's a 10th and a 10th and a half. Maybe separating a couple of drivers, but then it's suddenly 4 or more drivers with matters of hundredths covering them all. Let's see here, Van Gisbergen, only now starting to be seemingly close chunk. No, he's going in for one final set of tyres. Is anyone going to be staying on track, perhaps? Gardner. We're trying to look for an improvement here, so it seems appropriate to ride with him, I feel like. A nice slow outlap to get things going here, Reese. So let's see what the 93 can do. Close that margin up maybe to top 3.
All right, well, we're looking for a first sector time of about 33.5 seconds. That'll let us know whether Griffin Gardner's really in the margin for improving. Tiny kick of oversteer on the way into turn 3, but he used that to rotate the car nicely, and he's using all of the curb and then some on the exit. There is that first sector time. That's looking consistent with the fastest ones we've seen so far. Could be a little more improvement here in the second sector though. Look at how smooth he is on the wheel through turn 7. He's working that car very nicely.
Up through
right over the curbs at McDonald's. Nicely done. So now, turns 11 and 12. That's going to be the point of contention here. You don't want to take too much of these curbs, so if you can nail them, carry a lot of speed through. Lachlan Capel improving from 18th to 11th. Fantastic job there from Lockie. And Gardner through into the final corner. Sector 2 looked pretty good too. The time he's got to improve on is a 124.34. Can he get into the 23s? No, 124.2. That is a better lap time, but it's not going to get him into the top 3.
Close, but no cigar there for Griffin Gardner. At least maybe shore up P4 from a late charge. Minaj is currently going around the second. Let's see here what he's on. Not a great opening sector for him. One that he has to it'd be a miracle, I think, to recover that one back here, I think. Towards final couple of corners. Yeah. Time's okay in second sector, but again, quite what we're seeing right at the pointy end of the field. So I think that'll just about it. Indeed, doesn't continue the lap. Stanaway, yep, slow as on pace, and then I think that's about it. Really going to be Reese. So on left in the session, but yeah, we're trending towards getting ready to call it here and start preparing for the grid.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. Gardner had a very quick in-lap. I thought for a second he was committing to a second lap on the run, but he isn't. See what Flock is able to do here. A couple of tenths off in the first sector, and actually sector 2 not looking very good as the checkered flag flies. And yeah, waiting with bated breath to see if anyone commits to the end of a lap and ends up improving, but doesn't look like it. We are going to see Robert Gibbs improve, though, getting up into P9 right in the dying moments of the session. He was, what, 14th or thereabouts when we were last checking in on him. So big ups there for Robbie Gibbs. Seth Brown still on a lap here, but no.
After the timing fell, Morris has just gone through. Unfortunately, couldn't best his time of 25.0, so he'll be back. And then, oh, he's going to unfortunately find troubles for himself. And let's see here, Mitchinson. Nope, off the line. So I do believe that's just going to be about it. We can now turn our attention towards getting ready for the grid.
Yeah, so 68 laps and 2 compulsory pit stops to come in this race. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the drivers tackle that strategy. Remember, a full tank of fuel will get you around about 32, 33 laps potentially with a bit of saving. So, I mean, if there wasn't a compulsory pit stop requirement, you would be able to potentially get to the end on one stop with a lot of fuel saving, but of course 2 stops are mandatory. And so the question then becomes, how much do you extend those stints? Do you go for 2 short stints and 1 long one? Do you split the race evenly into thirds? What is the deal? Safety cars are going to be affecting that as well. Plenty of potential for the safety car to be brought out, and when it comes out is when a lot of people will decide to come into the lane. We will tackle that bridge when we come to cross it, because it's time to go through the grid for race here in round 10 of V8 SCOPS. It's Shane van Gisbergen who starts on pole position for this one. He is alongside Brody Kostecki in the 696. That Falcon Racing team is looking incredibly good at the front of this field. Dylan O'Shea and Griffin Gardner will handle the second row, with Bo Albert and Rayan Leonage on row 3. It's advantage Leonage for the championship because his rival Andrew Gilliam is starting alongside Richie Stanaway on the row behind. Robbie Gibbs and Sebastian Flock in 9th and 10th for Evolution Racing Team. And then we have Cameron Jones and Dylan Pereira rounding out the top 12.
The 13 for this race going to go to Lockie Cave. We've got Jake O'Reilly alongside in that 222 machine to kick things off. Michael Whining in 4 behind them, both on row number 8, with Seth Brown and Sebastian Tixier on 17th and 18th to kick things off here tonight for split 1. Thomas Freeman and Vincent Skilbeck will make it to row number 10 with Tyler Blackburn, James Chastanet behind those guys. Justin Wallace, Dan Hall to then round out our top 12 here. Top 12 rows, I should say. Apologies here in this session.
Yes, on row 13, it's going to be Brett Loxton alongside David Kirby with Michael Taliancic, championship P4, I believe, or thereabouts, starting alongside Ben Morris. Blake Delaney and Teo Sorono will round out the top 30 drivers. Then we have Luke Mitchinson starting in 31st alongside Tyson Broad. Zach Vlasblom and Justin McLean will line up 33rd and 34th, with Ben Faulkner and Jason Fewens 35th and 36th. Last few spots on the grid will be taken up by Luke Swan and Jay Brazier. Jordan Severus and Tim Mulford rounding out the top 40, with Benjamin Smith starting plumb last in 41st position. Of course, we have our 2 race directors and 2 safety car drivers in the session as well, ready to tackle any penalties or any incidents out on the racetrack. So 250 kilometers of racing to come. Remember, the pit window opens at the end of lap 2. That's when you can first come into the pits. And then the start of, or the end of lap 66 is the last opportunity you'll have to come into the lane and get another stop done. You will have to take tyres and fuel at both stops. Now, we draw our attention to how the standing start is going to go. Shane Van Gisbergen versus Brody Kostecki. They have locked out the front row. The real-life Australian touring car drivers. What can Stanaway do in the Mustang a little bit further behind? Can Dylan O'Shea give these guys a race at the front? The revs rise. The time hits 0. We're getting ready to go racing at Oschersleben for round 10 of V8SCOPS. We're away. Lovely clean start from Van Gisbergen and Kostecki, but O'Shea got the jump on them, and he's going to pressure them coming into the first couple of turns. Side by side between the 2 Commodores at the front of the field, Kostecki yields to Van Gisbergen, and we assume some form of order in the top 5 at least. Andrew Gilliam is pressuring Rayan Leonard and is going to go past him on the exit of second corner there. And that is going to be big for the championship as Leonage fights back at him. Look at this. This is the championship lead changing in real time.
This is what we're certainly here to see tonight. You see here, Gilliam going to get a nose ahead on Stanaway, it says there, as we come into the triple for the first time. In fact, pardon me, it's Stanaway getting back ahead of Gilliam there. All of that. Looks like so far only a couple of spots gained and lost until we get to the back of the field. That's one of the platinum cars around. Sebastian Tixier in the 070 inside of turn 7.
It's such a shame for Tixier. He did so well in qualifying, down 21 spots now. Huge shame. Looks like Blake Delaney is out early as well. I don't think he even took to the grid. Benjamin Smith as well out before the race start. He had a broken return spring on his throttle pedal. Tyson Broad in the midst of the midfield fight here. And Tyler Blackburn with a huge problem there, getting into the gravel trap and the wall out of turn 12. The end of the first lap is upon us, though. It is Shane Van Gisbergen from Brody Kostecki. Dylan O'Shea in 3rd. Bo Albert holding on to 4th place. Training spots with Griffin Gardner on the first lap.
Been a busy opening lap there. Now getting into a semblance of calm and order at the front, at least, as she's mistaken can do in terms of really trying to snatch an early spot off these guys here, or maybe not. We'll see. As they make their way around the triple once more. Front of the field, the front half, I should say. Sebastian Flock, unfortunately, has had a bit of a rough opening lap by our numbers here. He's down 4 spots. Although still running and dinted up, so okay, so it's probably his books. He's lost spots to start off with. Unfortunately, I was to lose our big time. Hefty panel damage on the left side, 147, and Tixier Actually not looking damaged on the left side. Has he got anything on the right here? I'm not seeing anything there from the right rear corner. So unfortunately just around for him. At the end of the back straight, we just had Sandero go past Jay Brazier there for what is 34th and 35th places, respectively.
Yeah, so close racing going on all throughout this field as everyone is formed in a mostly single file. Brody Kostecki taking the fastest lap so far, 124.8, but he's not that far ahead of Dylan O'Shea. Bo Albert and Griffin Gardner close together as well. The top five starting to pull a gap on our championship protagonists, Rayan Leonage and Andrew Gilliam, with Richie Stanaway still sandwiched in between them.
So Gilliam's willing to settle in here on P8. He needs to, he's going to be thinking about pushing forward, that is, I should say. Close up the margin to manage and not give away too many points. I mean, all things considered, 2 spots here in the middle of the pack. He's not going to lose too much in terms of championship situation. So there is a bit of that there too, and that will probably be okay with being where he is when it comes to that championship equation. Down into 11-12 once again. Tiny there, just you can see it. For half the field as it just saw Justin Wallace, I think. He had half a moment there on the entry to 11, and it compromises 12 as well, and it breaks the train up. Now a margin ahead of him is still back to the inside of Seth Brown at the final turn, and it's a kind of decisive moves you need to make here. It looks like there's that Albert and Gardner. Yeah, and it's an exchange.
Yeah.
Is that an exchange? Yes, it is.
It is, it is. Albert was in front of Gardner coming into the final corner, but Griffin outbraked him, went for the move up the inside. So now we'll see what Gardner can do to chase down that top 3 who are starting to spread out a little themselves. SVG got a slight advantage on Kostecki on the last lap. Dylan O'Shea just hanging on there. But have a look at this. That exchange between Gardner and Albert has brought Leonage and Stanaway right into the fold. They're dragging Gilliam and Gibbs with them.
Sort of an accordion, really, in the sense that, yeah, the front of the train starts somewhere at least, and places get exchanged. You move the accordion around, bunch it up in different spots, and stretch it out in other places too. Sort of really first sort of more than 3-car grouping, as it were. Back down towards, I think it looks like it's around Dylan Pereira, Jake Araya, Immohan, Cam Jones, actually, to be precise, for the next sort of car train here. We could go further back too, perhaps some more of the guys at the rear of this group. You might even say, yeah, count what they're capable in the front. So top 10, and going back to about 17th or so, if you want to extend to include Ian Ford and Thomas Freeman there. As on the front straight there, Jim Shifter's car slow on this side.
Oh yes, that's a little problem potentially for Brett Loxton, but he manages to stay ahead of Daniel Hall. Get the feeling that, yeah, he had a little bit of a compromised run coming into the final corner. He had to give it a couple of stabs at the steering. There was a car off at the final corner as well. Looks like Vincent Skillbeck had an issue. This is what happened to him. So we've seen that already a few times tonight. Drivers catching the grass on the way in, and oh dear. That is potentially something for race control to look at. Seth Brown catching Skillbeck on the way into the corner.
I mean, yeah. What a great look there for Seth. Might have been able to get the car across to the other side to it. TCO's having trouble of some count in the 07 race, although going okay. As all Sebastian Flock slow at the exit of turn 12. It's been shuffled back even more, down into 17th from 14th, and what was a P10 start. So qualifying pace of Flock is not converting in terms of just holding position at the start, at least, although see how that started. There.
It was turn 12. The exit curb of turn 12. He was trying to have a move on the car in front. Michael Whiting had nothing to do with it. It was just Flock getting across the curb on the exit, and, well, he was already in a slide at that point. Little tour through the grass, and back into 17th spot. So now he's going to have to try and find a way to fight back forward, because the field's continuing to spread out here as the race is settling into a nice rhythm. Top two, Van Gisbergen and Kostecki, have started blasting away from O'Shea, who remains in third spot. Griffin Gardner actually making up some time on O'Shea on the last lap.
Just have a look at here. 45-1 for SVG on the last lap. Had to get to the end of the lap here, so this time update. We get Kostecki 25.09. That would have eked in a little bit of margin there, as it's then 25.2. In fact, let's do this in this way, as it were, and show you here, like so, that comes to the lap times, they're pretty even. Kostecki seems to be showing a bit of the advantage, I presume, the slipstream will be helping out there. Straight line, although the second two, it's really the strongest. The second two is a combination of the triple plus the run to get down into the next straight line.
Meanwhile, first penalty has just come in from race control, and no surprises to hear that was for Seth Brown, his contact with Vincent Skilbeck back on the fourth lap of the race. So Brown will move through the pits, take a drive-through penalty, and continue on from there. No one's decided to come in for a super early first stop yet. We should expect the first stops to start coming in around the lap 10 to lap 15 area, I would presume, if you want to make your first stint a short one and try and go long in the middle.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately didn't really get a chance to sort of think about strategic options here, but if we go on the numbers we got for the V8s last night, which saw cars able to do 32 laps to a tank of fuel, would be theoretically good to do this race as it come in as early as lap 4 then, if you wanted to commit to getting a stop out of the way early. But you get the feeling for these guys here, yeah, you're probably looking somewhere around that lap 15 or so margin. That's a little bit shy of 1/3 distance in the race. Top the car off with a good chunk of fuel, as well as the tyres. Because at the same time, just stay up. Also, try not to get yourself entangled in kind of stops that could potentially be done under a safety car. There's a couple of drivers falling down the order, including Tyson Ward at this stage in the 27.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn 2, I'm going to say, because...
Yep, turn 2, claiming its first victim. Broad, I think, with a little bit of distraction, because I noticed him blinking a little bit on the way into turn 2. I'm wondering if that's going to show up on the broadcast as well. Yeah, right about this point, looks like Broad might have potentially had a screen freeze or an internet issue of some kind, and that distracted him to the point that he overshot the second turn, had to take a trip through the grass. So he's now back down in 31st spot. He's still one up from where he started, so I suppose the damage could have been worse.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the car's still in one piece. It didn't find the wall or get damaged there. By going wide, it's just, yeah, time lost. And now, if you just ease back into things, don't overdrive the car to try and make up what you've unfortunately put aside there. That'll just make things worse in this part of the race. Also can tell you the rules and
yeah, Luke Mitchinson and Zach Vlasblom at turn 2 on lap 6. Mitchinson's been given a black flag for that. Oh, we missed it.
Can pull that up fairly easy for you here, so we'll do exactly that.
Mitchinson way too deep on the brakes into turn 1, ended up cleaning up Vlasblom, and you could see that Vlasblom saw him coming there. He was trying to run wide and allow Mitchinson room to just run past him, but the trajectory ultimately brought the cars together.
Yeah, you know that technically Mitchinson didn't gain any places from that. Made sure to stop and wait for the last one to get going, and I guess the same thing there. Damage dealt out to both cars, which will hurt the 57. He was just there on 29th. Also lost a chunk of time trying to minimise the hit he ended up copping. All the same. So I guess on one hand, it seems it's definitely sort of on the harsher side of the scale for the penalty, but at the same time, when you think about the consequences of the action for Vlasov was the innocent party there, it does also add up on that side as well.
Well, the Alpha Venturi cars now together. Check back in with the battle for the last position in the top three, because Dylan O'Shea is still losing time to Griffin Gardner lap on lap. Gardner took 1.5 tenths out of O'Shea on the previous lap, and they're starting to leave that chasing pack of Albert, Leonage, Stanaway, Gilliam and Gibbs behind.
Yeah, it strings out there. Well, Gardner to Albert, Albert to Leonage, particularly the bigger gaps of this bunch, which can sort of still be almost classified as a single group. Yeah. So here, when I come to the line, we'll update you. What you is here? Well, predicted left off for this current one. See 25.8, 25.6, also 25.7. So with Albert and Leonage, consider their convert there, make those low 25.7s. To the actual lap they scored. So O'Shea gains or loses out to everyone in the group. Gardner the fastest. No, pardon me. Just pipped ever so slightly by Leonage. Because of O'Shea doing a 25.8, that technically draws everyone in this group just that little bit closer to him.
Oh, Gilliam on the inside of Stanaway. Oh, goodness, managed to gather it up, but loses a spot to Gibbs at turn 3. That was a bit of an optimistic move, I think. Seemed like Stanaway was a little early on the brakes, potentially, or Gilliam just slightly too late. Rear end was lost for the 201. That's costing Gilliam valuable points to Leonage in the Drivers' Championship battle, as Leonage also had a little go at Bo Albert coming into the triple. Wasn't successful for him, though. Remains behind. So here's what happened between Gilliam and Stanaway, looking on board from Robbie Gibbs's perspective briefly, but Stanaway gets on the brakes. Gilliam then on the brakes, fires it into the inside. Yeah, a little too hot there, and you see just up ahead of them, Leonage having a go at Albert. Looked like a poor exit for Bo from turn 3.
Yeah, just gets down low there, does Leonage try and force the issue, but so far in that one was Luke Mitchinson, according to my timing, is also
He's retired
the car after he got 3 laps after he got that incident with the glass bomb. And that might have been pretty much entirely in response to that flag, which is what you want to see. As Gibbs going to angle in his time a little bit onto the inside, Stanaway. Stays where he is for the time being.
Yeah, SVG and Kostecki are controlling this race right now. They're just running in formation at the front of this field. And, oh, that was a big curb hit from Van Gisbergen, but manages to gather it up. Obviously, these guys using plenty of their real-life experience to really gauge the behavior of these cars. Of course, there's also crossover the other way around. Sometimes sim racing experience can help you in the real world too. And Van Gisbergen, Kostecki and Stanaway have been active on iRacing for a very long time. In fact, SVG and Stanaway were active on the service all the way back in the early 2010s when the first Australian touring car, the 2009 Ford Falcon, was added to the service along with Phillip Island. So it's just experience on experience at the front of this field. O'Shea and Gardner still fighting, with Leonage continuing to pile the pressure on Bo Albert, who's having a really good run right now.
Steady for the time being, but yeah, going to be careful not to trip up here and all of this. Saying that, couple of races for Bo, been able to execute a couple of different strategy ideas and moves that have seen him make some good ground in mid phases of races. You'll see players like for him here tonight, perhaps. It's the undercut this time at Scott's Road 250k race, which is back at Raw. Something that works pretty well for him. Quite convert there at the end of the race. So he might for us strategy wise, a little bit something a little more conventional. He's run like 13. Now starting to pair off amongst all this, so you see not that much of a margin, but car and a half between Leonardo and Stanaway. It's almost still a trio with Andrew Gilliam hanging on steadfast there in the background of the shot. SVG and Kostecki go Gardner and O'Shea actually going to exchange places down the front straight away.
Oh, yeah.
And that looks pretty organised and coordinated between the two teammates.
Indeed it did. Of course, both driving for 9.5 Sim Sports. And, it looked like Gardner was the faster driver of the two pretty much ever since the race got into its rhythm. So now I think the goal is for Gardner to try and pull O'Shea along, and they can try and make some kind of impression on the top two later on. They have to keep the pace up, have to keep themselves in those positions, because any time there might be a safety car, there might be an incident out on track that justifies that. So while Shane Van Gisbergen and Brody Kostecki are miles ahead of everyone else at the moment, they are not quite safe.
Oh, yeah, no. And things like if a safety car comes out, they'll have obviously margin they can work with there when it comes to just making sure they hit the marks on the pit entry and make sure they're in the box and such. But still, anything could happen in here in this race, I would suggest. So it's still far from signed, sealed, and delivered experience, but certainly, top two converting their one-lap pace into race run pace as well. Seeing there as well, gap closing amongst these guys a little bit more. Still got a car's length between and Stanaway's Taliancic in the 777 around on the exit turn 12.
Oh dear, that's a bad spot. He's almost straight onto the racing line. He's going to have to wait a while here and let everybody go, wait for a gap and get back going again. And he has found that gap just ahead of Ben Faulkner, but all the way back to 37th spot. That's no good for the team manager of Pursuit Sim Racing, and unfortunately he just got on the power a bit too early, I think, through turn 12, caught the gravel and whoop, round it goes.
The apex curb there at 12, I think, didn't help things for the 777. Yeah, the combination of factors there. The rear wheels spin on up on him. Yeah, she went for that stint below light graze the fence. Car happy to keep running, it seems, at this stage of the race.
So now we are in the vicinity of that first compulsory pit stop window really opening for drivers that want to take it. As it stands, we're not seeing much sign of that from anyone in the field. Looks like everyone's happy with the pace of their cars at the moment, and just keeping a close eye on potentially what the two leaders are going to be doing, because with Van Gisbergen and Kostecki as far ahead as they are, whatever they do, the rest of the field will have to try and find some way to gain an advantage on them by doing something different. Look a bit further back here at Michael Whiting in the battle for 14th. Ian Ford with him, and both of these drivers having made up one position on their starting spot. They are chased by Thomas Freeman and the embattled Sebastian Flock, who remains in P17 after his incident earlier.
Yeah, hasn't able to work his way forward in this one so far. Back to the start, I should say. Seb, I guess no further backwards progress. So unfortunately, just a moment we caught for him doing a chunk of damage. Which speaks to how compact this group of drivers was on qualifying times and how that's translating by race pace as well so far. And really have to see drivers make mistakes more than somebody who's got a better race car at the moment versus drivers around them. This front half of the field, at least, most people only moving place 1 or 2 since we got underway.
These guys back here setting low 1 minute 26s. It seems in terms of lap times, the front of the field is content to stay around the 125.8 bracket. Fastest car on track last time around was, in fact, Dylan O'Shea, who has the fastest lap of the race so far. And Gisbergen and Kostecki have just been managing their pace at the moment. They're not too concerned with getting the fastest lap, as we have our first caller to the pits. One of the Alpha Venturi cars, Mr. Severus, is going to try setting up an early stop here. Will he go long in the middle stint, or will he go for another short one and try and go long to the end? That is the question now.
I think the thing to also be mindful of is there come our top 2 through the still frame. They're at 11 and 12, and if I was someone like Severus, I wouldn't want to be going a lap down at this point in the race. So puts in a nearly 20 seconds worth of fuel. That'll be good for about 44, 45 litres or so, and you'll see here, he does get out ahead of our leaders fairly comfortably, so that's pretty important for him there to be under too much of a threat. Just say that he's going to have now our fastest 2 cars on track, more or less.
He does have fresh tyres though, so might be able to match their pace.
Not really important as the tyres help him out. Sebastian Flock is going to be the next car in. So opt for an early stop in this race. Try and shake things up. Back here between June as we do exactly. That's 157. Got the radio there. I believe I sort of step side and background. To suggest that let's grab that on the replay for you as well.
Tyson Broad having a bit of an adventurous race out there at the moment, and it looks to me like he attempted a move on Zach Vlasblom into the final corner, but just overcooked it. We'll see it happen here. He moves to the inside, but then the rear end just goes on him, and he gets into Vlasblom immediately, giving the position back.
To do so. Just a little bit of an oops there for Broad. A bit hot as you find the grass on the entry to 11. Just avoids further contact and losing positions at that point.
Well held. Goodness me.
Yeah, that one easy in the dirt there on the exit of 13, and now the car's skating on him here. He's got to really reset the rhythm. Maybe think about an early stop here to shake things up for himself. Get that reset going because Jay Brazier looking, but no, can't make anything of it. We'll just back in line there.
There was also a trade for position between Jacob O'Reilly and Dylan Pereira at turn 2, and Pereira doing what we've already seen a few people do this weekend and take a little bit too much out of the curb at turn 1. He hit those yellow speed bumps on the inside, the car briefly went airborne, and he went straight on.
Yes, well, unfortunately, that's one way to lose your spots down at turn number 1 and 2. So, check that one off the list. Mr. Pereira in that case. 20 laps on the board, and, Severus is not running away from the race. In fact, is being hunted down. Last lap by nearly a second.
Yeah, the Van Gisbergen and Kostecki have started gearing up the pace. Now that the pit stop cycle is starting down the field, I think they've decided to put the power down a little more, and they have consistently been running a few tenths faster than Gardner and O'Shea here.
They certainly have. If I can look out the last lap for everyone on the tower, you see, yeah, 0.3 faster than Gardner in third, 2.25 of a second quicker. Actually, he's more like 0.2 there, in the quarter of a second to Gardner, 0.2 to O'Shea, half a second to Albert, and Leonage, Stanaway and Gibbs in that pack, just behind. So still got these guys compacted up as 4. William, just a bit of air ahead of him. So I wonder if Gilliam perhaps be a candidate from this bunch to go for an early stop. He's got position ahead of him to fire into the pit lane. Of course, racing line takes you across pit entry if you're right up behind someone. If they break a tiny bit early as the tyres wear off, okay,
there
Leonage.
He goes. Yeah, okay, so Leonage, the one to start the switch a-flicking in the battle in the top 10. So he's hoping from this that he'll be able to get a 1-lap undercut on tyres potentially and move past Bo Albert, I would imagine. Lachlan Capel also follows him into the lane. They're the only 2 cars to have taken to the lane on this run. Or having said that, I see Justin Wallace coming in as well. So a couple of drivers from the minor positions. Vincent Skilbeck coming in as well behind. Right then. This will be interesting in the battle for P5, whether or not Leonage will be able to get an advantage. And his pit stop was 21.3 seconds. That's the same stop length as Sebastian Flock, thereabouts. Just a bit slower than Jordan Severus. So, again, around about that 45-litre range of fuel taken, I would suspect, Dan. He's looking to pit again sometime around the lap 35 to 40 mark, I think.
Yeah, let's think. Could go as long as... oh, hello. The front of the field. Oh, trouble is they've caught the lap car of Severus.
Oh, dear. Van Gisbergen back to second.
Momentarily, though, it seems.
It was actually contact between Kostecki and Van Gisbergen. They had already cleared Severus, and it was nicely done, very clean, but Kostecki just went way too deep into the final corner and cleaned up Van Gisbergen.
Good thing it was not involving the traffic then, because I was going to say that would be quite unfortunate. Let's see here, 13 fine. And White Glob, yeah, just drives into the right rear corner. Oops, Severus, yeah, arrives on the scene all of a sudden. The 2 leaders who caught him quickly enough have ended up across the racetrack a bit there and spread out. So, well, Griffin Gardner, Dylan O'Shea, today's your lucky day because you've just been given a way in. Back towards the top 2.
Yeah, Kostecki letting Van Gisbergen back by. So, yeah, I mean, they had the margin to race each other a little bit, did our top 2, but unfortunately, going wrong at the final corner. We have 3 more cars in the pits meanwhile, Vlasblom, Mulford and Tixier, and they have just completed their stops. Actually, Tixier still with a little bit left on his stop time, but Vlasblom coming out ahead of Mulford as our leaders now start to come through.
Well, we're right on exactly 1/3 race distance here at the end of lap 23.
Bo Albert in.
And so there we go. A couple of laps later, and Leonage, which means I would expect Leonage, clean air for him. He should be able to get out here ahead of Albert. But it's a couple of laps now on the tyres for him. He might have to pay that back in this middle or final phase of the race.
Jones and Pereira also coming in, Kirby and Morris, Tyson Broad and Jay Brazier coming into the pits too. Pit lane is a hive of activity right now. We're really starting to see drivers set up for their last 2 stints here. Albert comes out of the lane. Will he have enough? No, he won't. Leonage getting the undercut on tyres, using that fresh rubber beautifully and coming out over a second ahead of Albert, but he's caught up behind a couple of cars here. This is not working out well for Rayan Leonage. All that time that he's gained on Albert is disappearing fast.
This is the last possible thing. Leonage, once he made the margin, now he's stuck behind Seth Brown, who's having a couple of moments there loose, as Stecky, Gardner and O'Shea have all come to the pit lane as well from the front of the field. So there we go, more drivers. Who has
William, O'Reilly and Freeman also coming in too.
let's see what it was. Should throw it up on the screen real quickly.
Kostecki down off the jacks, and okay, a little bit longer spent in the lane there for O'Shea and Gardner. Comparing pit stop times, Gardner and O'Shea were in the pits, in the box there for 3 seconds longer than Kostecki was. Kostecki with a comparatively short fuel fill here. He's going to be going short here in this second stint. Wonder how that's going to work out for him in the battle with Van Gisbergen.
Well, takes a track position now, potentially, and seems to have been worthwhile because, yeah, the 9.5 job came out quite Tyler Blacker, who is yet to stop in this race, and that'll mean for a little bit here, as they catch right up to him, they'll have to make sure they clear him if they want to get by, as Stanaway is going to respond to Kostecki, and more importantly, respond to Albert and Leonage, you would think. Speaking of those two, we have... I believe their traffic is finally cleared out.
Yes, it has.
So it's about right for Bo in that case, because otherwise he would have ranged up right on Rayhan. Let's see here. So wait, just arriving his box now. As 79 is heading down the back straight away. Again, see here, maybe a short fill to try and guarantee holding on to the position and see if he then can pay it back later in the race.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the pit box timer. Looks like he is going for a, yeah, that's about the pit time that we've seen from the majority of drivers so far, going for about 45 litres of fuel fill, and Stanaway will come out just behind Albert and Leonage. Will he lose another position out of that? Looks like he just might. Seth Brown coming out ahead, and Brown, of course, having served a drive-through penalty, so that's he's off cycle from everyone. Gilliam, meanwhile, down in 15th at the moment. And he is trying to fight his way past Stanaway now, who will have fresher tyres.
But all of one lap. Mind you, Gilliam had just come in. So
that can make a difference, small though it be.
once again, Seth Brown on old tyres. Now getting absolutely hounded by these drivers just out of the pits. This is, again, this is the worst possible thing for someone like Stanaway. Brown moving over. He should have let Stanaway go.
Oh, I mean, he was trying to. He lifted off to let Stanaway go, but Richie was more focused on getting the slipstream. So
Richie.
now Stanaway is all kinds of crossed up, flummoxed by that damage that was taken from running into the back of Seth Brown, and Gilliam is through.
Oh, man. Just a really quick sequence there. All of a sudden, Stanaway just, doesn't quite interpret Seth moving over there as letting him go. I think also important to note is Seth, part of Sim Racing stable with Andrew Gilliam is from, so I guess perhaps there Stanaway was aware to that, perhaps thinking that was a ploy from Seth to be really trying to aggressively help Andrew Gilliam out.
Yeah, of course.
Didn't seem to be the case, and then it just a matter there of just pushing a bit hard. Lost out of rhythm. Back round, that was a bit interesting there. It's trying to fend off Seb Flock, but coming to the triple, and that should be job done for the 84. Yes.
Yeah, Taliancic hasn't come in for his first stop yet. So all of the drivers around him are on fresh tyres and a huge amount of pace. And look at that, Flock driving away as unfortunately Jones, Pereira and Ford having to back off behind Tally. And Ford trying his best to put a move on Pereira, but not happening that time around. Here we go then, up the inside. Jones is going to have a go at him at turn 13, and Taliancic notes that the fight is done and decides to grab some fresh rubber himself.
Well, still Pereira versus Ian Ford off the exit of the final turn, as well as they try and sort that one out, but the in favour of Pereira there. Just noting also, early stop for Sebastian Flock has definitely helped him out, because he's leaped past all of these guys that were actually in the pack ahead of him, such as Cameron Jones and Pereira and Ford. And then he's cleared Freeman, Whiting, the drivers that he was stuck back with. So yeah, only downside is anywhere from 8 laps to 5 laps, 5 to 8 laps older on his tyres and fuel burn. Just also at the top of the screen real quick. Probably wasn't going to be the case. Confirmation there will be no further action from race control regarding SVG and Brody Kostecki getting into each other at the final corner on lap 21.
So the only drivers who owe us a pit stop now are SVG in the lead, Brett Loxton running second at the moment. Seth Brown has yet to come in for his first stop, and it looks like that is about it. So a few changes for position there as Seth Brown lets Robbie Gibbs go. And now Jacob O'Reilly will have to try and find his way past Brown. Loxton trying to reverse the strategy of this one. Van Gisbergen still out on the circuit. Will he come into the pits this time around? No. I'm surprised that SVG is going as long as he is. I noticed that when Taliancic came in, he had a pretty long pit stop of about 27 seconds. So the 777 is going to have a really short final stop here. What Van Gisbergen's going to do, I have absolutely no idea, because Kostecki is making up bulk time on him here, in excess of 8/10 per lap on those fresh tyres.
Which I think, yeah, 2 stops need to be made. Got, what's that, pardon me, 40 laps to go here. Do it in 220 laps. I guess it's just this game here now, of course, of, well, when do you choose to, come pick? Actually, things around so clearly says is, this pit stop lap, how long they've been out, on track. But, 220 laps. Is it maybe it's a game here that Shane reckons we're comfortable with the car doing shorter stints in the back half of the race, and he'll take a bit of pain now. Only 5 laps since Kostecki came in, and he said, really starting to put down fast times. And 5 laps spread out over 2 stints.
There he goes.
So there we go. Finally, response.
Righto. So it's going to be 2 short stints for Van Gisbergen to the end of this race. How that figures in the battle against Kostecki for the race win, we have absolutely no idea. Can Loxton continue on a bit further, or will he follow Van Gisbergen into the pits and get his first CPS out of the way?
Well, he'll be the only one left to stop. If he doesn't, he will respond to the race leader and decide that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery in the business. So that will be everyone done with service. We'll see here how long does he choose to stay in the pits for. Should him, but it's 20 seconds of fuel in, so actually going to lose out there. How about that? He's put in
behind
the same
Gardner and O'Shea.
It's the same amount of, and crucially, put practically the same amount of fuel in. That is how much the tyres have been worth. These guys are working around. So
yeah.
he's lost about 5 seconds. His gap is currently 10 to the race leader. He has 5 seconds in his hand in favour. Stop times now on the screen for everyone. He's working with. So SVG gets 5 of those seconds back at the final stop. He's lost 5 seconds by hanging it out on tyres, and now has to go work back through Gardner and O'Shea, who don't owe him any time in the pits.
So it's going to be neck and neck between Van Gisbergen and Kostecki for the win when the final pit stop cycle comes around. And we're expecting Kostecki to be the one to pit first, I think. So then that introduces another fold into potential calculations of race time. Kostecki will have, if he does decide to pit earlier than Van Gisbergen, will have an undercut on tyres, but SVG will likely be able to pit later and have fresher tyres at the end. This is an intriguing race. Will anyone try to throw up a surprise and throw us off? Look at the time that Van Gisbergen's already made up here on O'Shea, right on the back of the 119, could pass him on track.
Yeah, I have to say, where did O'Shea lose all that time? An off-track moment is the answer. Well, so has he dropped back a little intentionally here to try and score?
No, he went off at the final corner, turn 13 actually, penultimate corner, caught the grass on entry and went through the gravel trap. So that's the reason why you see the number 97 looming large in the mirrors.
So off of turn 10, drive is good enough, but a little bit of toe there for Shane. No, not going to commit to anything here. 11 or 12. You can see he's able to get that car a little better to the apex. Doesn't have to use as much of the exit curb and carries a bit more exit speed for his troubles. And very nice run through the penultimate corner up the inside of O'Shea. No defense available for the 119.
So time lost out on track for Dylan O'Shea. That will undoubtedly affect his strategy. He's lost any kind of assistance from Griffin Gardner for the time being. He's just going to have to try and stay close to Van Gisbergen and keep his draft potential up. But with SVG on those fresh tyres, I mean, it really is incredible the pace that he's got there. 125.2. I mean, he's not going as fast as Kostecki did when he first came out of the pits. About 8/10 slower, looks like. But regardless, pace difference still visual. Look at him, he's pulling away.
Quick over one lap, quick in a stint, and Gardner's just falling back now, it seems, towards these two. That last lap, despite having to pass O'Shea, SVG went and just casually pulled 4/10 out of Griffin Gardner, who's no slouch in these cars. Yeah, the pace on display tonight from SVG and Kostecki too is certainly impressive to watch. See here, where did he make the time? Pretty much entirely in Sector 1 is the answer. He actually lost time everywhere else in the lap.
So not the best first sector for Griffin Gardner on the last lap, and I would posit, I would hypothesize that it was turns 1 and 2, but actually looking at the last lap there for Griffin.
Just updated as I pulled it up pretty much. So that there is lap 32 numbers. Absolute shocker up through the triple and through to the back straight away.
Yeah, because I've been looking at Griffin's last couple of laps, and it doesn't look like there's anything really wrong with his driving. He's not making any mistakes. He didn't have any offs, but it looks like the pace has just gone from those tyres, or potentially Griffin is managing the tyres, trying to preserve something in them for the end of the stint. Don't know at this stage.
I mean, yeah, we did kind of see it in the opening part of the race, content to sit behind Bo Albert, and then eventually work his way past and up to O'Shea, sat behind O'Shea for a bit, and then able to work his way past. I would suspect maybe a little bit of a pattern forming there, the Gardner making sure not to overdrive the car here at this point in the race, and then have something left as the stint goes on. Someone like SVG is absolutely putting the hammer down. 25.5, going to play a 24.9 on that last lap.
Yeah, there we go. With Brody Kostecki and Griffin Gardner being out there for 10 laps now, that is the difference in tyre pace on versus tyres that are only 4 laps old at this stage.
So about to hit the halfway mark at the end of this lap here as well. So obviously watch out for it. Also means we're almost on the window for, say, if a safety car needed to come out for some reason in this race, you should be able to make it home on a tank of fuel and tyres. Anyone actually goes for something like that, you wouldn't know, and we'll have to see how things play. I think actually curiously, let's go with Gardner here. Actually compare his lap to Kostecki, the last one. Yeah, not as bad of a time deficit, but still lost 2 and a bit tenths to your leader on that one. Just starting to inch out towards 8 seconds. Is right in front of them. Nice and broad, and Mike Taliancic have a bit of a get-together through 13 and 14 as that position looks to have been given back.
Yeah, that was broad, going a bit deep into turn 13, losing the rear end, getting into the gravel slightly. And Taliancic giving him an extra little tap for his troubles, but then Tally ended up locking up into the final corner and gave the position back. So now the challenge is for Griffin Gardner. He needs to get through these two. They are, at the moment, going a lap down. Taliancic doesn't make it too difficult for Gardner or Van Gisbergen. Broad, meanwhile, continuing on. He'll be getting blue flags. Oh, there's a mistake from Griffin Gardner. Oversteer in the last turn of the triple into the gravel at turn 7. And the battle is gone between he and Van Gisbergen, who continues on.
Just off the corner of our screen there. Getting close to the back of board there, but I don't think there was anything toward you see here on board with the 93, as you said. Oh, he's grabbed first gear.
Is that a double downshift?
Go back again and have a look at it then. Yeah. Wants to look. Yeah. I would have thought, yeah, we'll see here. Yeah, third, so yep, push that. Good call.
It happened over the curb as well. Maybe the force going through the wheel accidentally tripped his hand into pressing the paddle a second time. I honestly don't know, because I feel like that's the most likely explanation, other than a straight up hardware issue, which it doesn't seem Griffin Gardner suffers much from. That's a shame. Oh, problem for Van Gisbergen. Oh, okay.
Thankfully, only very momentary.
Yeah. Well, he'll be hoping that his connection stays stable towards the end of the race, because otherwise it'll be a great drive gone horribly wrong. Checking back in, meanwhile, with Bo Albert and Rehan Lienage. Albert's managed to find his way back past Lienage in the midst of all of this. Of course, Lienage had that little coming together with, I believe it was Seth Brown, shortly after they came out of the pits. Somewhere along the line, Bo Albert's gotten back ahead of him.
Back on lap 28 is the answer.
Okay, that was a while ago.
It's worth going to have a look here. So, very interesting. So, out of Bolts. Oh, yeah, Leonard definitely slow there. That caught Bo out something. And then slowdown penalty maybe for Leonard because he moves over and, yeah, rolls out. That has surely never been a slowdown. So that was definitely a little easier than one we probably hoped for. Was, look at that. Been lapped, and they've now got to worry about Gardner again. Broad and Tally are fighting over the last position on the track. And once again, it'll have to be Tally Ansich who gives up run first. We'll step aside here, you would think. Not going to. Gardner's going to force the issue on him there.
Ball goes wide, lets him through, play on.
Yeah, from that angle there, it looked maybe like it was had to get out of the way. The move will be moved, perhaps, but no. Indeed, may have just been a case of opting to hold it up high and be able to carry on without much fuss. So yeah, our top four, yeah, reasonably spaced apart there. Five in the background, 5 and 6, Albert and Naj. Next battle pack, we'll have to start looking here at this group of cars, which is mixed up a bit in all this. Flop through to Freeman, so including Cam Jones and Ford Carrera, just outside the top 10 here.
It looks like Ian Ford's trying to make up bulk time in the braking zones versus Cameron Jones, who has been able to hold on to a position in the top 12 for the majority of this race. But you see Fordy is looking every single braking zone for a way past the 9.5 number 019. Unfortunately, the exit of the final corner not with him, and he'll have to wait another lap or so to get that one done. Shift your way back a little bit. This is Freeman on the back of Pereira, and as it stands, Freeman and Pereira very well matched, at least going by their last lap times. There was only a couple of hundred separating them.
In fact, this entire group is quite well matched, it seems, at this point in the race. Of them, Sebastian Flock not looking is by all of a tenth and a bit slowest of the group. On this lap though, it looked like he was a little wide at turn 3 whilst we were on board with Freeman, and also started to struggle a bit. So don't forget, he's been on his current set of tyres for 20 laps, so he has at most another 10 in the tank, or 10 and change in the tank, you would think. But those tyres might just be really suffering for him, and he's going to want to try and stretch, you'd think, as far as he can now. Shorten up the final stint, because we still have 30 laps in this race when they start this next lap of theirs here.
It's always fun watching the exit of the final corner, seeing just how hard drivers push. 600 plus horsepower going through both rear wheels of these things, so it's going to be difficult to keep the car stable across the bumps, across the exit of this circuit. It is a very pristine, modern venue, built in the late 1990s. I think it opened in 97. But of course, that is enough time for a circuit like this to obtain a little bit of character as the ground moves over time, introduces small bumps into the racetrack. Brett Loxton and James Chastaneuf negotiating some of those bumps on the exits of these curbs as they make their way through on their next lap. Loxton a tenth faster than Chastaneuf last time around. Don't forget that Brett Loxton was one of the drivers who ran super long on the first stint. He was the one who followed Shane Van Gisbergen in when he finally pitted. At the moment, looks like Loxton is the one with the tyre advantage by, looks like 5 laps.
Yes, he is indeed. Chasty closer to even on the stints, although it went slightly longer in the opening one. So maybe we see him down the lane in about 10 or so laps, maybe. Be one to watch. So that looks like a bit of a starting to form up in behind. Justin Wallace although perhaps more aptly behind Dave Kirby in the 307 might be where it's really at. Claude Wallace in, it's the flight for just out the 20th and then positions just outside the top 20. So background trying to hold off Dan Hall soon on the dice.
Yeah, this is difficult here. These battles just outside the top 20. They're so well matched as we have our first taker for the second stop. Tyler Blackburn made it 15 laps on that stint, so nice short stint in the middle. And he's going to have a long one to the end. I'll have to be looking out for him. Pitted from about 31st, I think, or 30th position. So keep an eye out, 7-second stop. That should be enough fuel to get him to the end, coming out in 37th.
Yep. A lap down on the leaders. Now it is a sequence as well. So I would hope some fuel. So we did have last night in the Bird 161, unfortunately. Now co-driver pairings, unfortunately short-filled. That being apparently told short-filled on fuel by their calculators. No, don't do any favours there at all. Just comparing here, we've got Ben Faulkner and Justin McLean closing up towards each other here at the moment. All on the high side of a second. And McLean there, afraid to get all the sideways in the background too, it seems.
Yeah, they're going to have to make way for Van Gisbergen, who's coming up behind them in a few corners' time at least. I was going to say, it's always difficult when you're battling way down the field. This series is so competitive that there is someone to race with no matter where you are in the field. These guys have battled over 3 days to even get into this race, as that's a big lock up there. And it looks like McLean will let Van Gisbergen by without much issue.
Convenient opening of a break clock in that circumstance, but it's not what Justin would like doing. Lindsay now can't put pressure on Benjamin Faulkner ahead of him. Have to try and get back to the 42 machine. Does have about 6-lap tyre advantage. He might still have a little something left in his virtual Dunlops to do so with. There's in the background there, Jay Brazier. He throws it over the curb and possibly could have met the concrete wall there on the left side of the screen.
What a night Jay Brazier's had. Ended up having to exit qualifying early because of an issue with his car, and he's been slowly trying to climb up the order, starting 38th and up to 34th now. I mean, he's just been having those tiny little whoopsies every so often, and I think he'll be grateful to see the end of this. In fact, pretty much everyone who's a lap down or more will probably be glad to see the end of this race, because it has been tough for a lot of drivers out there, not least Mike Taliancic, who started just inside the top 30, but has unfortunately suffered multiple incidents, like presumably this one we're about to see.
We caught something in here, turn one. Pretty much unfortunately a whole lap back. So, is there anything in particular? No, okay, so maybe I'll get, maybe not hear him right, because that's certainly a perfectly calm, ordinary run through turns 1 and 2, so chalk that one up as false alarm in that case. On circuit for Jordan Searis. His 42nd lap of the race. Still circulating, and car still looking mostly okay there. In fact, almost entirely okay at this stage. But unfortunately, our last car running, we have lost Tyson Broad to retirements. It seems Samaras will come for his final stop of the race here on his 42.
Yeah, that was 26 laps of a stint for Severus, so the tyres would have been crying out for mercy. And that might have played a part in the incident that he suffered. It was more just catching the grass on the exit to turn 3. He ended up going deep and way out into the grass and gravel. This is an interesting shot, seeing how everyone tackles the exit of the third turn here. Albert and Leonage. Well, now Andrew Gilliam is a part of this fight. We see more takers onto pit road. Lachlan Capel pits for Evolution Racing Team down in the low to mid 20s of positions, and he ends up getting a 16.3 second fuel fill. Good to the end, but this is Gilliam versus Leonage for 6th on the road right now, and the battle for the Drivers' Championship lead.
Yeah, just the fact this one's a multi-layered conversation here between the 79 and the 201, and also still sticking with Bo Albert, so could also come and fight for P5 here. So across the line on that last lap, pair lap times.
Gilliam a lot faster, half a second.
Yeah, well, both him and Leonage starting to close in on Albert. Don't forget that both tyres actually, Leonage's tyres longest of everyone in the group. 24 laps old now. In fact, this is the laps they'll call on for. There you go. Maybe Albert here, not always comfortable with the car in the longer run, but he needs to go at least another 2 or 3 laps to make sure the final stint will therefore be his shortest.
Thomas Freeman and Sebastian Flock completing their second stops. They're joined in the pits by Michael Whiting, David Kirby as well. Freeman has managed to make his way out. Flock just behind, and followed closely by Whiting. So now they're equal on stints to the very end, having been separated by a couple of laps before.
Crucially for me there, it's Thomas Freeman's stop. Pretty much fuel to cover the tyres. Not a drop more needed, really. Give or take maybe half a second. In which case, that's maybe a litre difference. Leonage will pit again. First driver from that battle. What is currently in the top 5. Tried the undercut first stint. Didn't really work when he came out in traffic, as Albert came out behind him and he ran into traffic.
And the slowdown didn't help either.
And the slowdown to top things off indeed. Will it finally work this time?
Well, 16.5 seconds in the box. Cameron Jones pits behind Leonage. So that's the figure. We'll have to see how long Gilliam and Albert remain in the pits then. Rayan does get some help behind the scenes. His father, Laz, watches over his shoulder and plays race engineer for his son. Leonage, the youngest driver in the field. And we've certainly seen a lot of success out of it so far, exploding onto the scene last year and taking his first win at the Winton Round in 2022. In come the 9-5 pair of O'Shea and Gardner. Now, they've coordinated this nicely,
So they will do,
coming towards the end.
So they will do a 22-lap stint to finish here in this race. Sticky for them. No response yet, though, from either Albert or Gilliam just yet. They're going to go at least one lap longer. And Dave Kirby has injected himself in between was in 5th and now 6th. Kirby here, just come out of the pits for his final stop. And then jump back to Tasseroni also, just done the final stop, along with Severus, unfortunately, down off the pace, off a little lap. Circulating. O'Shea out of the box, or in the traffic that Leonage is going to eventually catch. I was going to say earlier, is because there's Leonage in the background. He's come out in a beautiful pocket of air, and looks like he's also going to get out ahead of, that would be Jay Brazier there in the 057. Yes, he has just come to the pit lane.
There was a bit of drama that just happened off camera. Griffin Gardner getting into the back of James Chastaneuf on the exit of turn 3. However, I don't know if it's going to be a penalty or anything like that for Gardner, because Chastaneuf was already sliding at the point of contact. So we'll wait and see if there's an update on that, as Albert, Stanaway and Gibbs all come into the lane too. Now, once again, Rehan Leonage has the undercut. You would expect that Albert might come out equal with Leonage. Just ahead, maybe just behind, we don't know. Let's see how much fuel he decides to put in. Stop for Leonage was 16.5 seconds. It looks like it's going to be about the same for Albert, if not a little longer. There's Leonage out on track at the moment. He is going to come steaming through.
He will comfortably get that spot off with Albert. Question is, where does Bo come out? In behind the lapped car of Brazier. He's going to have to hope for a bit of cooperation there from the 057 once he gets up to him. You also see Albert having to take about an extra 1.5 seconds of fuel to cover him home to the end. So that also plays its part as Stecky comes into the pit lane first of our leading pair, which again, no surprises there, given he was short by about 5 seconds on the first stint. Question is, by coming in first, he now obviously gets the fresh tyres earlier once again. Is SVG going to have anything for him the back part of the race? Because we are coming up to, well, on this lap, when they cross the line, 20 to go here at Oschersleben to round out our weekend.
Yeah, this is the question.
I would think for SVG, you probably want to come in next lap, because unless you know your performance on old tyres is superior to Brody's, and the way they seem to have been pretty much back and forth at all points of the evening, I'd be sure you get out there and have a chance. Be sure that you're settled and sorted, as Leonage will get past Gilliam and Albert and Gilliam.
Oh, here we go. To the side by side. And Gilliam's going to have to yield there, but he's immediately going to have a look, try and unsettle Bo. He wants as little objects in between himself and Leonage as possible. Remember, Gilliam and Leonage are equal on points in the Drivers' Championship going into this round, and Leonage, with that undercut and also spending less time stationary than these guys, has gained himself a good amount of breathing room towards the end.
Yeah, let's call that 1.6 seconds is the number from Albert to Leonage. Is strong off at turn 10. Close enough to properly challenge, and see it's in his interest to just maybe for a bit here see what Bo can do, and allow him to drag a pair of them up to Leonage is in front of them. As I say, is indeed Brett Loxton coming down the lane after just 19 laps in the middle of the race. His final service. See him cycle well down the order, and it means that the drivers up the front. It's just SVG and Ian Ford. A stop to go back to Dan Hall in 12th for the stop is owed.
Yeah, and Michael Taliancic and Luke Swan, Benjamin Faulkner as well have yet to come in for their second mandatory pit stop of the race. Taliancic, Faulkner, Taliancic, Faulkner, and Swan. They've all been out for over 24 laps, or over 22 laps at this point. So we should expect them in the next few laps.
Yeah. Because in my mind, there's also the part here where you don't want to be coming in so late that sure, you've got fresh tyres, but you lose all the time being on the old tyres for so long, trying to give yourself that overcut, which again really just doesn't seem to be all that beneficial. Especially I think around a track like here at Oschersleben, we've seen passing opportunities are relatively low, and you have to be really assertive with your moves. A driver who just makes sure they get the right corner exits on the defense, be able to work their way through. Seeing Ford cycles into the pits, will cleanse the top 10 almost of compulsory stops. Actually, Ford is still in P10, and Dan Hall now places him at the back of that group. And still waiting on when SVG will make the call. He's opting to go still a couple laps longer again, which I just think is not going to be helping him unless something comes up to turn this race around. As I ball with Robbie Gibbs for a little bit here, because he's making this now potentially a 4-car fight, closing in on Leonage as well.
Yeah, Leonage set a 125.1 on the last lap. All of these guys were in the mid 124s. So I'm not too sure what's going on with Rehan. Remember, he did spend a bit less time stationary on the stop, so he would have put a bit less fuel in. Does that mean that Leonage has potentially underfilled it for the final stint?
I mean, yeah, that's always a possibility. If when you want to be in a defensive position, short fill by maybe a litre. This place maybe a litre and a half, and then just let up a litre and a half. That's almost a second's worth of stationary time, and then from there, work on just holding your position, save the fuel, and they catch up to you. Can't get around you.
Yeah, you mentioned it's so difficult to pass around this track. Just got to focus on your exits and you'll likely be able to stay ahead of the car chasing. And he's also got a little benefit in that Albert and Gilliam are more concerned with each other at the moment, I think. Albert trying to stay on the defense and hold on to a position in the top 6. Gilliam, of course, having a couple of issues early on. Probably a little further behind than he would like. But the fight will continue on between those 3 Mustangs as Jacob O'Reilly and Thomas Freeman trade positions. That was for 11th spot. And looks to me like it might have happened at turn 7. Meanwhile, Gilliam, he's actually had a big look at Albert, who's gone a little deep in turn 13. There's a little whisper of something happening there, but for the moment they seem to have gathered it up and continue on.
Despite that, they still take Albert in was 10th quicker than Leonage. So despite that little moment, it seems to have not affected the pace of the 06 too much. First lap. So this little group certainly still compacting. Van Hall finally brings his final stop to bear. Just for an international flop, essentially eyeing off a fight for there is 11th, with O'Reilly just ahead, rounding out the top 10 at this stage. SVG is still out. Only top 17 cars are still on the lead lap of this race. That, of course, will correct eventually. SVG continuing to deny us stop what we expect of him.
Michael Taliancic, the other remaining car out there, yet to come in for the second stop. Taliancic comes out ahead, Taliencic moves ahead of Seth Brown, who comes out of the pits and then has to deal with Jordan Siberis, but Hall with a slightly better exit there will get it done, and he's not even really fighting them. He's really fighting Taliencic for position, and of course when Michael comes through into the lane, that will be Hall truly released for the final stint of the race.
Yes. Just try to think of... 90 days of getting to me or something like that. Back to the lead of the race. SVG is crossing the line now to do 25.5. Let's see Sticky do here. The last lap was pretty similar, 25.5 from SVG. It was 25.0 for Kostecki. Hold up.
Uh-oh. Oh, this could change things. Wheelie bins, that's Skillbeck, I think. And has he been given permission to tow there?
And we may have just been robbed of a bit of potential drama.
Well, shrug our shoulders and continue on and refocus on the battle for fifth. Leonage still holding on by about half a second versus Bo Albert, Andrew Gilliam and Robert Gibbs, who have compressed ever further. Albert looks to be the cork in the bottle here, because remember, Gibbs was a little bit further behind last time we checked up on these guys. So it's a proper three-way fight for sixth, and they're all trying desperately to pursue Rayan Leonage, but they seem to keep tripping over each other.
Somewhat, but they're still pulling a 10th here, a 10th there, despite how close they're getting to each other. In fact, all three of them there pretty much right on that 10th, 1/10th gain, whichever way you look at it. So, whilst they're right there with each other.
Oh, SVG's in.
All right, finally we go. It gives us what we're after.
So, he is free. Only a 15-second stop there. Brody Kostecki has just come into turn one and into the lead. So now, Michael Taliencic coming out too. This is not what Kostecki would want, having traffic in the form of Jason Fewens and Sebastian Tixier to work his way through. Shane Van Gisbergen comes out.
Only 4 seconds back.
Yeah, only 4 seconds, yeah. So, with those fresh tyres now, SVG will be able to pursue. Kostecki's been on those tyres now for 7.5 laps, and they might be reaching the end of their prime phase.
I mean, it's even just little things like that. Kostecki in the barrel of traffic there. That's a combination of on the circuit and just a Taliencic rejoining the circuit after his final stop of the race. Actually, no, pardon me, Tally was part of the group that was on track. He's still yet to come to the pits. So he's still trying to flog the last of the tyres here on his 29th lap in this one, as we're coming up to 12 laps to go. Pure left he will. SVG's got the gap. This has been a good out lap from SVG. He's got the gap down from 3.7. I mean, turn one didn't help, but
he made up like a second on that lap.
Yep. Let's go over this here in sectors alone. And crucially, it's half a second in sector 2. And then another, what's that, 3.5 tenths in sector 3 after the traffic had all been cleared. All right, so we have ourselves a proper scrap that will start brewing once he gets there. Just got to clear this last bit of traffic, it seems, before we can go to a proper fight for that spot. 9.5 duo spread by about a second. And this quartet still sitting pretty cozy that last one. Again, another 10th gained by Albert and half a 10th by Gilliam. This is Leonage.
This has been a slow-moving race, but it's been consistent action the whole way through. I've actually found myself really enjoying this race. I thought, considering the racing and supports that we saw on Friday and Saturday, that we might be in for a bit of a sleeper, but this has been intriguing the whole way through. Thomas Freeman and Sebastian Flock fighting over 11th spot. Flock has managed to finally overcome the deficit he had earlier from his incident that put him back to 17th. And you see that he is taking some...
She didn't take time on that one, but it's only marginal
not on
loss.
that one. I think on ultimate pace, you would still say that Flock is the faster driver. So let's see what he can do here.
Yeah, without a doubt. Apologies. Switch focus from... Freeman to Seb there. Let's switch that back so we can keep these two in focus. There's a 10th back his way on that one. Strong initially under brakes at 1, strong into 2, and then swings for late apex, although you can see there. This is a turn out of it as he arrives at the corner. Despite being on older tyres, no, sorry, same age tyres for these two, so this also means that it's down to pure pace and who's looked after their tyres so far in this race. Is Stinky's having an absolute shocker.
He has. I was about to say the lead gap has closed down. Shane van Gisbergen now within a second. Across the line, we'll see their laps. It is a 25.49 from Kostecki, a 24.29 from Shane van Gisbergen. That is a new fastest lap of the race.
Well, he needed to be fast to catch up. 10 to go.
I didn't think it had happened this quickly.
No, not at all. It's literally been in 3 laps since SVG came out of the pits. It's gone from 3 seconds to 3 tenths.
So let's see how much he gains through the triple here. Obviously the tyres are at their best as we check back in with O'Shea and Gardner, who still holding on to 3rd and 4th. They don't have any pressure behind. They've got another 7 or so seconds to the battle headed by Leonage. But SVG, that is a much better exit. Could that have been a slowdown from Kostecki? A poor exit from 10? In any case, Van Gisbergen makes the move at turn 11 and back into the race lead.
That is just absolute pace. Shane at this point. Looks like the 7-lap tyre delta is enough to work some serious wonders here. Also maybe could be, you can see obviously Kostecki's car still sporting a bit of damage from when they entangled at the final corner. I believe that's where that damage on that side comes from. Hurting the car in a straight line as well, because they're up behind SVG in a tow. Even. And that particular occasion you just saw there. Shane really comfortable with the car out of the corners. Kostecki's car looking a little looser out of turn 3 in particular.
You can see he's starting to streak away back to this fight here for 3rd between the teammates. Griffin Gardner at the moment, not much of a chance of chasing down Kostecki with 9 laps remaining in the race. The gap between them is just going on 10 seconds. And negotiating traffic like that is certainly not going to help as O'Shea gets into the back of Lasplom there. That was an awkward spot of the racetrack or traffic dramas to happen. That's increased the distance between the 9-5 teammates. Don't forget, this group's going to have to start working their way through that traffic as well. They've enjoyed a clear track for the last few laps, have Leonage all the way back to Gibbs, but pretty soon I think they're going to have to start slicing and dicing, and we might see some changes of positions from that. Oh, Albert having to make way for Gilliam in the final corner. Gibbs having a mistake. Side by side down the start-finish straight between the two Mustangs. One privateer, one pursuit. One of them battling for the lead of the championship. Gilliam goes for it. And he's up the inside for turn 2. Albert goes deep. He's off the circuit. And that is the end of Bo Albert's fight for a position in the top 5.
The engine shut off there for a bit as well. He's going to lose a spot. There's a Stanaway in the process as well. He won't lose any more there. It's unfortunately for him, Thomas Freeman is a good 10 seconds still back from where he is. There they are, as they've actually both. Jacob O'Reilly, mistake for him going off track is actually both Freeman and flocked through. Look at this here. Let's see how bad this was for the triple two.
Right then, on the way into turns 11 and 12, was this turn 12 exit? No, it wasn't, actually.
Oh.
Entry to turn 13, yep. There we go.
Rear in the dirt. Oh, the rejoin.
That was close. Oh, that was close.
And then calling in this one's going to get up off the track real quick. He called it in, but as we can see, William keeps that nice and tidy on the inside.
Yeah, no contact. But still, there's no reason for Bo not to try and call it in case there was something untoward happening. That's the mentality of any racing driver at this level, be it real or sim. They'll try and search for any advantage they can, and sometimes getting race control involved is part of that.
Couple of battles, yeah, still up and down the field here as well, Reese. Actually in between our top two, Tyler Blackburn and Dan Hall, scrapping over 23rd place at the moment, although should be getting blue flags off of Brody there in the background, which is also just helping Shane continue to eke out the margin that he's been able to do so since getting by.
Yeah, Van Gisbergen almost out of sight of Kostecki now, as up the inside goes the T-car of Dan Hall, and that compromises Kostecki on the exit, who has to get on the brakes. Manages to keep going, but I don't know if Hall and Blackburn are going to come under the auspices of race control for that. That was properly hindering one of our top two. I mean, I know that they have their own battle to fight, but I think the timing wasn't great.
It doesn't look good on either. Well, yeah, Dan Hall in too hot, runs both of them wide, but then Blackburn, it seems, just able to really, try and settle the car down and maybe find a way to get right out of the way of Kostecki. And just, this looks a little clumsy there, all of that, as we've got drivers fighting. That car wants to sort things out as well. So we've got that. The 95 duo is still nose to tail. It's about as close as we've got on the track at the moment. Yeah, making some inroads again on Leonage, but he's going to need to go bigger. He was going with. Wiley has gotten back past Flock, or 11th. It's also allowed Freeman to skip away a little bit as well. Behind these two. Capel, and was dragging Dylan Pereira just a little bit back there as well. So it could be a multi-car scrappy just outside the top 10 race. Then have a three-way fight amongst, actually there you go. As our 9-5 duo go by. These cars here in Fewens, Tixier and Seth Brown all racing each other for spots. Down here in 25th on back.
Yeah, Brown thought he had the inside for the final corner. He's trying to get past Tixier, has another look at him into turn 1, but Tixier well ahead. Of course, Sebastian, a prolific racer outside of V8SCOPS. Notably, he competes regularly in the Grand Prix Legends series in the Lotus 49. So he's well used to cars that have a tendency to do that. What just happened to Seth Brown? And now, well, once more, looks like Rayan Leonage is going to start to catch up to him. That is Leonage's teammate Tim Mulford there, who's embroiled in this fight with Zach Vlasblom, and Leonage is on traffic now, trying to have to deal with this, as Andrew Gilliam will potentially have to chase him down as a result. And Gilliam very heavy over the curbs coming through the chicane. He's trying to gain as much time as he can with only a few laps left in this race.
Yeah, just 4 left in it when they get to the line. I'm surprised this isn't hurting Leonage as much as it could be. It says a lot about perhaps the pace that William doesn't have here, as Vlasblom will hold around the outside of the final turn, and that really stuffs Leonage. Trying to get to the point here. Come on, Zach, you might need to move over here for the Blues.
There he goes.
But he's only going to let one of them go, because here comes Gilliam and Gibbs.
Okay. Well, at the very least, it's closed things up. Andrew Gilliam flashing his lights at Zach Vlasblom, saying, mate, you need to get out of the way. We've got a battle to fight here. Gilliam goes up the inside. Vlasblom goes wide. He manages to just keep it off the gravel and lets them all through. It's a little more orderly between Leonage and Mulford, as they are teammates. Mulford immediately having to let these two go. Gibbs trying his best to eke out a move on Andrew Gilliam, but the gap just isn't opening.
No, it's not, but they now have another shot at the top, at the P5 position that Leonage has been holding down most of this back half of the race. So we can get something done here. Not the best run for turn 10 for Gibbs, although actually gains a tiny bit of time up as we got to the end of the straight there, thanks to the toe. It's a game of who's got the best tyres underneath them. We can make sure they hit their marks. Just 3 laps left in this race when they cross the line.
Oh, they've closed up. They have massively closed up.
So we say bad run for Leonage.
Gilliam pokes the nose out. He's got a little slipstream, but he won't be able to make a move into turn 1 there. He'll have to rely on Leonage potentially going deep. And a little bit of a bump. Oh, here we go. It's been great racing between Gilliam and Leonage all season. Looks like it's continuing here. Is Leonage a little compromised on the way into turn 3? What can Gilliam do to take advantage? Not much out of that corner anyway. But now we are down to the very technical part of the circuit. Look at how much deeper Gilliam throws it into the first part of the triple. And into turn 7. Oh, that was a little wiggle from Leonage over the curb. Gilliam once again smelling blood.
Just not in a spot to be able to execute off it. Aggressive through the chicane there, McDonald's. Just a little wiggle on 10. Prevents him from getting a drive down. Leonage will cover though to the inside as we get to the end of the straight, but the door's open on the outside. Maybe, no. Gilliam tucks back in. He's able to get, again, curb on the apex at 12. Thereabouts neutral. Gives in behind 2. What was he here to play for?
More defense. Leonage went, immediately to the inside of the final corner, but there goes Gilliam trying his best to give him a little wiggle. It was slow for Sebastian Tixier, actually, who went off at the final corner there. That will be a big change in the battle he was involved in, but these 3 cut it down to those 2 at the front. They are battling for the Drivers' Championship in 2023. Neither of them can afford to give up any points. Whoever finishes ahead out of Leonage and Gilliam from this round will take the lead of the Drivers' Championship. We still have to think about factoring in drop rounds, but you don't want to give up anything when you're battling so hard with someone across the course of a whole calendar year.
Playing it smart here. See, it's just strong enough, it seems, through the second sector on this occasion to not be under threat as we head down towards the end of the back straight in this final sector here. Also on the brakes, of course. then once more.
Someone's in the wall. Jason Fewens.
Yeah.
Oh, that was close. Doesn't look like there'll be a safety car or a call to race control as things stand. But the final lap has begun for these three. It's a poor exit from Leonage once more. White flag has already flown for Van Gisbergen, Kostecki, Gardner and O'Shea. And into turn one, Gilliam has the run on Leonage. How much is Rehan going to fight this? Both of them battling with their cars. Leonage with the inside for turn two will keep the position, and Gibbs sees the door open and he'll try and put Gilliam back to 7th spot. Gilliam's going to try and fight him here into turn three. Gibbs has to run wide and let him go. The battle will resume between Leonage and Gilliam, but how much longer will it last? They have until the end of this lap. Is Gilliam too far back?
Maybe 0.4 of a second into the triple here. It's going to probably come down to a mistake, you would think now, from Leonage to allow him back up into this one. Meanwhile, check in with them in a second, because Shane Van Gisbergen, one corner left to negotiate here at Oschersleben for the 250-kilometre race here in Split 1. And after dominating pre-qualifying and qualifying, he will take a win next to his name. Meanwhile, they have closed up here in this fight for 5th. It will be Kostecki and Gardner to round out our podium here tonight on the track races. O'Shea had a massive moment on the final lap. Is he out of fuel?
No, he's held on, and it looks like Leonage has held on to Gilliam. Will finish ahead of him at the line. What a fight that was.
That's the stuff we like to see in terms of good, hard racing there. All race long for the final spot in the top 5. And I have to say, credit to all of them there for pulling that off. Indeed. Just now wait for our drivers to finish coming across the line. Let's wrap things up for the evening here. But yeah, definitely impressed by this fight here. Two championship protagonists going at it hard, but more important for me, or crucially for me, going at it pretty fair there. All things said and done.
Looks like a photo opportunity as well for the real life touring car drivers at turn 2. Kostecki is lining up next to Van Gisbergen and Stanaway. Should be a nice little moment for them as the last few cars come across the line.
With that, I do believe we can now progress to our race results. Yep, that looks to be about right, so we'll bring them up on screen for you now. Ladies and gentlemen, confirm it, 7 seconds the margin for Shane Van Gisbergen at the end of it all. Ahead of Brody Kostecki there in 2nd place. Griffin Garner only across the line to round the podium out for tonight. Just, had been shadowed by Dylan O'Shea practically all race long, but slow final lap for O'Shea sees him drop back just in front of Rehan Leonage to round out top 5. Andrew Gilliam, he probed, he prodded, but no way through it seems for him, unfortunately there. He'll have to settle for P6. Robbie Gibbs tried there on the last couple of laps, but P7 will be where he settles in. Stanaway did a good job to keep his nose clean, it seems, tonight. Reese will take a P8 finish for his name. Bo Elbin, unfortunately, dropping out of that fight for the spot in the top 5. We'll have to consolidate with 9th. Thomas Freeman able to hang on to the final spot in the top 10.
And Moran Leonage will take the championship lead from that. Jake O'Reilly coming up to 11th spot after starting 14th. Good drive from him, with Sebastian Flock unfortunately losing 2 spots to finish in 12th. Pereira, Capel and Whiting will round out the top 15. Cameron Jones unfortunately had some issues in the middle phase of the race, dropped from 11th to 16th. Ian Ford comes home in 17th spot. From outside the top 20, James Chastaneuf and Ben Morris get in, and Justin Wallace makes up 3 spots to finish in 20th.
21st place across the line there will be Dave Kirby and Teo Sorono in behind there to round out our drivers finishing on the lead lap of this race. Dan Hall, first car a lap down ahead of Tyler Blackburn and Seth Brown. 25, Tim Mulford there, peak 26. Brett Loxton ended up in 27th. And then Tixier, Mike Taliancic, and Ben Faulkner rounding out your top 30, with Jay Brazier and Zach Flasholm over the page race, rounding out the drivers one lap down here tonight.
Yes, indeed. 2 laps down for Jordan Saberis, Justin McLean and Jason Fewens, and they ended up, I believe, making it to the end. Drivers that weren't able to make it to the end: Luke Swan, Vincent Skilbeck, Tyson Broad, and Luke Mitchinson. Unfortunately, Blake Delaney and Ben Smith could not take to the start. Not too sure what the problem was for Delaney, but it was a hardware issue for Benjamin Smith right at the start. That concludes the racing section of the night. We can go into driver interviews now, and who else should we go to first but our dominant race winner, getting back in the sim once more, back into V8SCOPS. It's Shane Van Gisbergen. Congratulations, Shane. That was quite the fight with Brody to start things off in this race. You guys were controlling it the whole way through.
Yeah, thanks guys. We had a fun few days trying to make the setup bit better and had a lot of fun, and then we the Richie's Dock Shop team, we came out with 1-2. It was pretty cool.
So Richie Stanaway obviously having some input into the setup as well then.
Yeah, he's made a setup shop, and on that, thanks to Richie's Dock Shop, it made a big difference. Pneumo Crypto, we couldn't do it without him. Manny's Home Brewery, we'll celebrate that tonight with Manny's on the house. Woody's Paint the Body, that's our panel shop. Brody's off there now, did a bit of damage. I saw it on my Wallace iFlag product as he crashed in pit lane. I got the warning there, so I stayed out for another lap or two. But and also like to thank Andrew's Dental, Anton's Exotics, Bushflicks, and Apex Hunters United. It's fantastic to have a big sponsors group on board our Richie's Dock Shop cars.
Absolutely. It seems like you guys were having a lot of fun out there. Can we expect you for any future rounds, Shane?
Oh, we hope so. We have a bit of a dispute. Apparently our livery didn't get shown on the stream, so we'll deal with that. But it's been good fun. All
right, awesome stuff, Shane. Thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we get another chance to chat to you towards the rest of the season. That was Shane Van Gisbergen, our race winner, and Dan, I'll leave you and have a chat to Griffin Gardner, who got on the podium for 9.5.
Cheers there, Reese, and another job well done for you there tonight, Griff. Just unfortunately, Shane and Brody coming in tonight seem to just be on another level, with lap after lap being pretty hot from them tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't have the pace to run with those two guys. Credit to them. They're very, very quick, and obviously they've done the work for this week, so credit to them. But I had a bit of a rough start, got a bad launch, and just tried to consolidate from there. Had a bit of a mishap in the middle stint, unfortunately, which put us at risk. But apart from that, it was a good night.
I mean, yeah, as I said, it's I'll probably worth saying. So long race around here at Oschersleben. Obviously, a lot of concentration, it seemed, around this circuit. Would you say it's sort of one of the tougher tracks to do a long race at, or sort of other tracks you'd probably say tougher to do longer races at as a solo driver in a series like V8SCOPS?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the toughest weeks I've had, to be honest. I think that this week and Detroit, very similar, tight and twisty and one-line tracks, so to hit your marks for 68 laps straight without making a mistake is pretty difficult, especially when you got the current and narrow setup window like we had tonight. It was kind of struggling a bit during the week to find a good balance, but we went well tonight, so that was good.
Yeah, and able to be followed there by your teammate Dylan O'Shea pretty much all the way, and a little bit of exchange back and forth between the two of you at a couple of times. Unfortunately, Dylan just dropping off on the final lap by the looks of things. We were wondering if maybe it was just fuel or something, but then again, he was pulling some little slides there out of the final turn. But I mean, all in all, having a teammate there you can work with certainly helps you out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, credit to Dylan. He had a very good race tonight. It was very quick. I was trying to catch him in the middle. I think I was in front of the middle stint and made a mistake. Lost about 3 seconds, and I couldn't catch him back in the middle stint. I think he had a mistake in the last stint there, especially at the end. I think he nearly went off, or he went off a couple times. So, but apart from that, he was very strong tonight.
Yeah, well, as you said, only one minor moment for you, just to have some blemish it in terms of the perfect race record. But yeah, I think all in all, that car was you on the obviously definitely on the track far more than any minor moments off the circuit. So definitely congratulations to you, mate. And before we let you go, who do you want to thank for the result tonight?
Just big thanks to Sean and the whole team for all the effort they've put in. We've got a big month coming up with all the enduros across both the major series, so there's been a lot of effort going into this, and hopefully we can get the results. So big shout out to everyone in the team, and just to our sponsors, Racecraft, Tony and Race Apparel, RSW Graphics, Racing Ears, and Prestige Cinematography, and a shout out to you guys as well for the quality broadcast.
Thank you very much there. Griffin Gardner, third place from him tonight. Round out our interviews for this evening, Reese. And finally, we can now bring things to a close for us here after 3 nights of covering events here at Oschersleben for SCOPS and SCOPS Supports. But not a long break before we're back on and the V8SCOPS Endurance Cup begins for 2023.
Indeed it does. Sandown 500 will be happening on the 10th of September. That's not very far away, so make sure that you all get on for that, because my goodness, it is going to be a massive one. Really looking forward to getting things through and figuring out who is going to be best placed to become the V8SCOPS Endurance Champions for 2023. You'll be able to catch that from 1 p.m. Australian Eastern. Of course, we have a supports package to go through as well on Friday and Saturday. I'm Reese Gardner, Dan Yeaman with me in the comms box. We want to thank everybody for tuning in across the course of the night, and we really hope you enjoyed the show as much as we did. We'll see you next time here on SimSpeed TV.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.